The following podcast contains spoilers and adult language, and we are back. Back in the New York mood. Ooh.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. Evil is coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
Back. And I'm Steve. And I'm back.
We're all back. This week we are talking about The Return. See how we said it was back? It's a vibe. Mm-hmm. It's the return of Walking Dead, Dead City, and we're back in New York. Dead City people, we're very excited. This week we are doubling up, and we're going to be discussing the first two episodes because we were busy finishing something up last week. So the first two episodes of season 3. Episode 1's title was Trillium, and episode 2's title was Haven. And we will get to chatting about those in just a minute, including our quick thoughts, which we'll get to in just a second. But I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment here at the top of the episode to discuss... we didn't want to make a big deal out of it, and in not wanting to make a big deal out of it, we forgot to even mention it last week.
That is pretty much the most you can do to not make a big deal out of something.
Yeah, we did such a good job of not making a big deal out of it that we didn't even talk about it.
That's right.
We meant to, and it just totally slipped our minds. We were so sad over it being our last time talking about the Burrows that we completely forgot to mention that last week was our 400th episode. Woo-hoo! People. Woo-hoo!
Wah, 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 wah.
Yeah. And I'm not sure. We just didn't want to make a huge thing out of it. We already did some sort of celebratory stuff a little earlier in the year when we celebrated 10 years of the podcast. Mm-hmm. We did a lot of looking back then. So we're sort of like, we're not worn out from the looking back, but it felt appropriate to sort of mention it, but we sort of did something already celebratory this year, so we didn't want to take away from our 10-year anniversary by, rambling on and on about 400. But thank you to our listeners, and thank you to all you guys who come back week after week. You're the reason we do this. And so, yeah. Thanks a lot, man. 400 episodes. How do you feel about 400 episodes?
It's hard to believe. I'm pretty sure now that I am now your longest running co-host.
I think you are. You are the co-hostess with the co-mostest.
I believe
episodes.
So. Yes. So I think you know what? I keep hoping you'll take away that interim title from my co-host position. But
we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes.
Keep making cookies, and we'll see how it goes.
That's what I have to deal with, people. Every week, it's like, so am I still? We still? And you're like, maybe. So
maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But again, to be more serious about it, folks, thank you so much for listening. Even if this is your first episode, crazy, you're hitting us as we're hitting our stride.
That's right.
We're at episode 401 now, people.
This is our next 400.
Yeah. So you'll be able to come back at 800 and say I was there at the beginning.
I was there then.
Of the next 400.
Wow.
I don't know
if
that would be exciting or not, but that's up to you guys.
That'll be in like 2038. So yeah, we'll see where the world is at that point.
We'll see. Okay, folks. So again, big thanks from the both of us. Thank you so much for coming back every week. We love doing this, and we're glad that you love listening to us too. It's great. So now on with the show. On with the show. So like I said, if it is your first time with us, thank you for joining us. And if you are a returning champion, you know our usual format, but just to reiterate, we usually like to do just a quick play-by-play at the top of the episode and talk really quick, we call it our quick thoughts, on how we felt overall about what we watched. And then we'll get into sort of the play-by-play of the episode itself. So, all right. So I went first last week, and Steve, it's your turn to go first. So I know we're covering 2 episodes this week, and we will kind of break up some of the episode description stuff and all of that. But if we just want to give our quick thoughts on both episodes at the top, let's do that. So
okay.
Tell me, how did you feel about the premiere, and how did you feel about episode 2?
I think it's if people have been following us along while we've been covering this show, I think it's safe to say that I've been more positive about the show than you have. In previous
In the
seasons,
past, yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
And I think I enjoy, I think, the characters more than you do. You know what I mean? And it's not that you don't enjoy them. I just think I like them more than you do. And so I was kind of willing to overlook some of the obvious, narrative flaws of the show and just kind of enjoy getting to see Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Lauren, Don't Call Me Karen Cohen running around in the set and having a good time and all that stuff. And,
Yes.
and that being said, the show was never great. The narrative was never great. I have huge problems with a lot of the setup from the first two seasons, with the whole, just all of the technology that still exists and still, people are still driving cars and people, they still have just tons and tons of like synthetic clothing that they're still wearing, and it's just all these things that you're just like, really? I don't think so, and, but I was able to overlook it, and so when they announced season 3, I'm like, okay, we'll give it a shot. And obviously, as people may or may not know, the showrunner for the first 2 seasons, which was, if you remember, was this dude named Eli Jornay.
Yeah.
He left. He was, he moved on or was told to move on or whatever, and instead they brought in this new guy named Seth Hoffman, and I think both of us, when they announced that, were like, well, okay, let's give him a shot, see what he's going to bring to the party, right? And hopefully it'll be good, And I think, the first episode did not really grab me all that much. And I won't say it was bad. I just found it very uninteresting. And I would say that right up to about the 27 or 28 minute mark of the show, and then it finally got interesting to me. And we'll delve into that a little bit later when we get into our points. But it's obvious to me that the new guy came in and is like, yeah, all the stuff we've done the first 2 years, yeah, it's gone. We're just moving on. And so there's so much house cleaning in this episode to kind of get the world in position for the story he wants to tell. That, the New Babylon army that invaded, yeah, they're all dead. They're gone. Sorry, done. Bye. The Croat, yeah, he's not going to be around long. Oh, you like the Dama? Well, I hate to break it to you. It's just all of the stuff they had set up in previous years. He's like, no, not going to happen. So, and I think it wasn't really done all that well. I think it was kind of like a lot of stuff you kind of have to really pay attention and read between the lines to figure out, oh, that's what happened. Oh, okay, and so on. And I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just they could have done it, I think, in a better, more overt way than they do.
Right.
Episode 2, I thought, was much better. I'm still not crazy about the story. I'm still not crazy about the universe. And I'm sorry, but Maggie's dreams and plans are just asinine to me, but we'll get into that when we get there. But again, there's a development that starts in the first episode and continues into season 2 that I am actually kind of excited about, because I want to see where they're going to go with it. And it could be great, could be awful. We got to see. But at this point, that has piqued my interest for what's coming up. So kind of like first one was kind of and second one I was like, okay, I'll give it a dance and see if it can keep up. And so I'm kind of cautiously optimistic at this point. So what about you? What'd you think?
I don't know what show you watched.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm kidding. I wanted to see if I could scare him, because we literally just talked before I hit the record button that we both kind of agreed on a lot of what Steve just said. And I just wanted to, throw him for a loop here. I agree. I felt like, and I'm glad you brought up how I felt about like the previous season. You were much more entertained during season 2 with the Dama and the Croat. And I love the actors that were involved. I loved Bruegel more. I really wish they had hung on to him as a bad guy a lot longer than they did, because he was just a good comedic,
Oh yeah.
he filled in nicely. But yes, so season 2, I wasn't a huge fan of. I was entertained every now and then, but I was disappointed more than I was entertained most of the time. And that's how I felt about episode 1. And it's like you said, it did start to turn around a little bit in the end. And then I felt like episode 2 was a lot better. I am much more cautious than optimistic about the story that it looks like they're gonna, the storyline they're gonna go with. But I feel like as much as I'm cautious about it, I still think it's better than some of the stuff we got last season. Remember the whole group of people that lived in the Central Park? Mm-hmm. Like, that's just done.
Right.
That's over
They're
with.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, they came out, there was one moment where they came out of the building and they are literally right next to the park.
Yeah. Oh, no,
Anyway.
Look,
so
all of the stuff from season 1 and 2, the new guy's like, it's gone. I don't want
Right.
to deal with any of it.
None of that. Yeah. Now, I'm hoping that will be a good shift. I like the group of people that they're with. I really like Raul Castillo. I've seen him on a bunch of other things. If you're a fan of the series Looking, he was on Looking for that whole season, that whole series, and he was just fantastic. And I've seen him pop up in other places as guest starring roles and little things here and there. He's really good. And I think I really, really like Jimmy Simpson. I hope they use him better. Like, I like the comedic effect he's had right now, but I hope they flesh that out into something a little more substantial. So like you said, cautiously optimistic. I'm leaning a little bit more on the cautious just because of where they've gone before, but it is certainly a better path that they seem to be heading down than they were all of last season 2. I'm at least looking forward to watching the next episode, which I don't think I said any time we were discussing season 2 last year. I just really, I was only really interested in watching Kim Coates do Bruegel. Everything else was just really boring to me. Mm-hmm. It just didn't capture me, It's funny you said the thing about, still wearing synthetic clothes and, everything like that. And, when we were talking about the math, we've got to be like 15 years in, because you figure if, Herschel is like 13, 14 or in that range, then you got to figure, she didn't get pregnant right away, so you got to like add like 2 years onto whatever Herschel is. So we're at least 15 years into the apocalypse, probably a little more.
Right.
And there was a moment at the very end of episode 2, and you forgive little things here and there, but there was one moment, and I was really, really paying attention to the group that is drawn in by the Statue of Liberty at the end of episode 2.
Yeah. And
starts approaching the shore. It's this, it's what we're used to. It's a random group of, and I'm going to use air quotes here, others who just...
Heavily armed others.
Yes, and they start walking towards the shore, and I was trying to, like, look at, like, what are they wearing? Is it something that would, like, spark, like, where are they from? Whatever. And as they were walking away, the actor they chose to be at the back was a guy who was wearing a baseball hat, and he had the cleanest, like, hairline on the back underneath his, like, he'd literally just come from the fucking barber.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, just, like, slap, like, a fake couple of pieces of hair. Nobody has a tight haircut right now unless you show me a scene where they're like, oh, well, that's Jennifer, and she does all our haircuts, like, once a month or something.
And they all have, like, shaved heads or something.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, so that was I'm right there with you. There's little moments here and there that will still kind of take you out. And it's something small like that where it's like, that's easily fixable. Someone watching that, they should employ a person who's like, yeah, it wouldn't look like that 15 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, even if you want to sit there and go, oh, maybe they have a barber as part of their group, don't assume that people are going to jump to that conclusion. Just throw a little bit of hair on the back of them, or have them wear their hood up, or have a scarf around their neck. I don't fucking care. Just make it.
Hire shaggier actors.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, please do. Shaggier actors, if you could. Yes, but as much as, there are little bits to pick and nick at, and we will get, like you said, we will get into those details. kind of disappointed with episode 1. I understand the work they had to do there, and it was a lot. And you're right, we had to do some of the heavy lifting there. Episode 2, much better, and I'm hoping that they sort of continue in that direction, if we're lucky. So, knock wood. We'll see how it goes. Mm-hmm. So, before we get into our details on the 2 episodes and discuss the writer and the directors of the first episode here, we always like to give you just a quick rundown of the episode description, and that's usually Steve. So Steve, go ahead and take it away.
All right. So first of all, these 2 episodes are being brought to you by...
Are you looking to improve your home, make it more classy, but still let folks know that you're down to party? Then get yourself some boob art. Oh, that's right, boob art. Nothing will make you look more sophisticated than a painting that at first glance appears to be a landscape. But on closer inspection, all right, you know it's boobs. So be the talk of your neighborhood and get yourself some boob art today and let people know that you're classy but trashy.
Boob art is available everywhere where smut is sold. Brought to you by the makers of butt art and dong art.
Hey, I mean, my house is adorned with boob art, so, I'm already a fan.
And so am I. I mean, if it's one thing that Steve and I have in common, it's our adoration of the boob.
Of boobs.
So, yeah, boobs. So sorry guys, we're gonna be like 10-year-old boys about this because Steve actually is a 10-year-old boy.
I am,
and I have one inside of me.
Yes, you
so
do.
yeah,
you should let him out.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
All right, so moving on to our episode description. And am I doing just episode 1 for right now, or am I doing both of them?
Let's do episode 1 for now, and we'll get through all the details, and then we'll circle back to the description when we get to the episode.
Okay, sounds good. Just wanted to know what we're doing. Episode 1, and again, this is The Walking Dead, Dead City, episode 3.1, and the title is Trillium, and our description is... written by the chatbots, I'm sure, and it is as follows. Maggie and Negan are caught in a treacherous situation that challenges their newfound alliance. Yeah, sure, let's go with that. That's your episode description.
Yeah, I don't know the newfound alliance, like, it was newfound because they decided to be allianced after she stabbed him in the back, and he almost stabbed her in the back, and then they're like, we gotta stick together, dude.
Yeah, and particularly if you go back and watch the end of the season 2 finale, how much of an alliance is it when Maggie comes up behind him and runs him through with her knife? It's like okay, I guess, but anyway, yeah. That's our description. So moving on to our writer and our director. And this is a little bit weird because the episode itself lists our writer as Matthew Negretti. Mm-hmm. But if you go to IMDb, IMDb lists the writers as Bob Kirkman and Scott M. Gimple and somebody else. I can't remember. Another big Walking Dead guy like Tony Aldard or somebody, right? And so it's just like, whoa, I'm not sure, but I'm going to go by what the TV credit says and say it's Matthew Negretti. But maybe it isn't. Maybe it was Kirkman and those guys. I'm not sure. But assuming it was Matthew Negretti, we've talked about him a lot already in the past. He is the author of 23 episodes of The Walking Dead, spanning like about 8 seasons of the show. So, clearly a guy who's been involved a long time with the show. We should be very familiar with him. He also wrote 2 episodes of The Ones Who Live, the Walking Dead spinoff with Rick and Michonne. And he wrote 20 episodes of The World Beyond, which is like more than like 3/4 of that series.
Yeah, that's probably like just a handful of episodes short of writing
all of them. Yes. So you know, clearly, and I think he was the showrunner for that show, or at least one of the executive producers. So I think he was, you know, really, you know, that was one of his babies that he really worked on and you know, had a lot to do with. So, but and you can look him up. He's done some other stuff too, but just obviously in the Walking Dead universe, very much a massive contributor. If you look at just not just the total number of episodes he's written, but the quality as well, because he's written some good ones in there. So, and I think it's important to point out that he absolutely 100% stayed the fuck away from Fear the Walking Dead. So good for him.
Good job.
Good choices. So that was our writer, and then our director is again another Walking Dead veteran, and it's this dude named Sharat Raju. And again, kind of an exotic sounding name. It should sound a little bit familiar. He directed 4 episodes of The Walking Dead. He directed, unfortunately, 4 episodes of Fear the Walking Dead, and doubly unfortunately, they're all in the time of the Knuckleheads. He directed 1 episode of The World Beyond, and then just in general, like other shows that he has worked on, and he does have a decent you know, number of credits. He directed 8 episodes of Criminal Minds. So, you know, that's like a big time network show that he was involved with. So yeah, that's our writer and our director. And I'm not at all surprised that for this spinoff, and particularly because they're sort of rebooting it with this season with the new showrunner, that they would bring in some kind of, you know, definitely 2 Walking Dead veterans to kind of write and helm it. So, and with a little bit of a spoiler alert, we've talked about this with the Burrows and some other shows, that it's a very common practice that usually for the start of a season, or in this case, the kind of a restart or reboot, it's very common that the guy or the gal that directs episode 1 many times will be brought back to direct episode 2, just so you kind of get the same vision for those first couple where you're establishing everything. That happens here. So you will we will mention Mr. Raju's name a little bit later when we cover episode 2. So
yeah, excellent. All right, so let's get talking about the episode. So let's talk first. We get this really great it's a long cold open. I started writing down some stuff, some notes, some things here and there, and then I realized they covered a lot in this cold open. I mean, it went from, you know, like we get the whole like Maggie digging the grave. We get we get the opening with the 2 guys doing the, putting the wanted poster, and they can hear something going on inside, and they're like, oh, we got to get out of here. The piece of paper flies away, blah, blah, blah. The piece of paper thing was great because it gave you these really great sort of kind of drone style shots of New York, but all like deadified, as it were, apocalypsed, as it were.
Oh, yes.
And I put it in my honorable mentions, but I got to say while we're there that and you included in your points too. So I think out of all of them, they all looked great, but the Times Square shot was probably the best one out of all of them.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that was the thing that stood out to me. You know, you kind of get this weird, like, shot of like somebody like rigging like old timey time bombs onto the like tanks, the methane tank things, right? You know, and I mean, it's literally like a stick of dynamite with like an alarm clock or a watch attached to it, right? I mean, it's certainly old school, and you see the 2 guys and they're nailing the wanted posters up, and I think there's a shot of like the New Babylon army marching around, you know, and so it's a lot of activity and stuff, and then they like you said, they kind of start showing us different views of New York, and there's a shot of Times Square, and I'm guessing it's all CGI, but it might have been like a real shot that they just did CGI too. I don't know. But it's looking down at Times Square, and you see all the ghouls. And then in the foreground, there's like literally a line of like Abrams battle tanks, clearly abandoned, you know, old, you know, and it's sort of like the remnants of when, you know, there was an attempt to, hold the city, secure the city, make people safe, whatever. Before, obviously, the government decided, screw this, we're pulling out, and, they blow the bridges and all that stuff that we saw kind of in the flashbacky stuff of the earlier season. I thought that was just a really, really, that those kind of, like, scenes or images, I think, are really interesting and fun, because you take a landmark or something that we recognize, and then you show it. Yeah, it's been overrun by the dead and so on. And I think that's really cool. And I'm glad that you picked it too, because it was a really cool image. And you're right. And then we kind of settle on Maggie digging the grave, and then we're off and running for the episode. So.
Yeah, and there was a lot to cover there. I mean, it was Maggie digging the grave, Negan coming up, they argue, he almost stabs her, then Renata and Luis come out, and, they're like, we know who you are, and they go to take them and bring them back to their place. Then they get waylaid because they're, like, walking down the street, and of course, in a city the size of Manhattan, out of nowhere, Herschel?
Yeah.
And then Herschel comes walking over, then there's an explosion, because why wouldn't there be? And then after the explosion, they I think, does the explosion and then we go to a commercial, or do we see them going down into that, like, basement, like the basement chute before that? Because there's a lot. Like, I didn't even write down all of it because I just couldn't remember, but that's a lot of stuff to do in the first few minutes. So
yeah, I think the explosion happens, and we see, like, Herschel go flying, off camera, and I think then it cuts to commercial, but maybe it went a little bit longer. But yeah, that was kind of like the jarring point, the, like, oh my God, what just happened? We'll be right back, yeah.
So it's important, like, kind of like the setup of the whole episode is this. There's all this, meeting Renata and Luis is one thing, because it really sort of opens up a bunch of other stuff. But really that moment with Negan and Maggie, they get into this big argument about, you brought me here and you did all this stuff and blah, 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 and how dare you. And they're just arguing about every little thing. And it was good, because it was kind of like a reminding you of everything that's happened. I was like, oh yeah, she did do that. Oh yeah, she did do that. Thank you. It was like a little recap. It was a recap with yelling.
And then they're also pointing out and helping to remind everyone that Negan's little girl that he was so keen on protecting, and I can't remember what her name is. Ginny, yeah. She, of course, once they brought it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. She was in the cell and she had the fever and all this, and then when they finally get down there at the end, she's turned. Right. And so we're reminded of that, and that obviously is it's definitely a sore point for Negan, but also a sore point in the fact that Maggie just stabbed him and basically almost killed him. And as he says, and I don't remember if it's this episode or I think it's later in this episode where he goes, I wasn't mad at you for or almost killing me. I was mad at you because you didn't. So, but
that happens later, but man, it's a really great line too.
Yeah.
Because there's so much tension that was built up in that moment, because, he's upset he was stabbed by her, and I'm like, are you surprised? I mean, you did some things.
Yeah.
And then when she's like, I'm sorry, I did all these things, and she's like, you go ahead, stab me or whatever.
10-second offer, and then it's done.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's just like, I'm going to do it. And she's like, you got 10, 9, 8.
There's this great moment before she even does the whole stab me thing, because right at the end of it is when Renata and Luis show up. They're arguing back and forth, and she makes some comments about she's been trying to let him go, and Negan says this one line which I thought says everything about this relationship for the last 3 years. Who are you kidding? You're never gonna let me go. Which is true. She has some sort of weird bond with him that she just cannot give up for some reason.
It's because they're
and
gonna hook up.
Oh God, they better not. It'll make the entire fandom throw up at the same time. It'll be like the Stand By Me, the pie eating contest.
It'll turn into a Barfarama.
Yeah, nobody wants a Barfarama over that.
All right.
Ugh. I mean, it's bad enough we had to see him do the whole the stuff with having sex with Alpha.
With
when
Alpha,
she was the
yeah.
mask and everything.
Bow,
That was-
nicka, wow, now.
I know. Listen, he took one for the team.
He
Kind of.
I think he gave one for the team, but okay, yes, you're right. Let's move
Yeah,
on.
sure,
Let's
sure.
move
However you
on.
want to put it. Yeah, but anyway, so the opening sort of establishing stuff is meeting Luis and Renata. They take them because they've got that little picture, not the one with Maggie on it, but they've got the old one with Negan on it. They're like, oh, we heard you say the name Negan, and we know that Negan is the Croats' number 2. And they're obviously mad at the Croat for some reason. He did some stuff, and they're like, listen, you're just as good. We'll take you. You know where stuff is. And that's when they sort of leave where they were burying Ginny. They're walking down the street, and of course, like I said, Herschel? Mom? He says mom first. Mom?
Yeah.
And then she goes, Herschel? And then everybody slapped their forehead with their hand. I give them a lot of crap about doing stuff like that where it's like, when would this ever happen? Like, realistically, like the closeness of people in a place that's realistically large. I mean, it's not like Texas, but...
Delaware, Texas, maybe.
Delaware, Texas. But still, it's pretty large. I will give them a little bit of credit, which is in the very first scene, when the wanted poster comes off of the door and flies away, and we get these great, all of those great drone shots we were talking about, and it shows the, city sort of decaying, and they're gorgeous shots. The first time I watched the episode, I hated that scene because I was absolutely expecting, because I had low expectations from season 2, I was totally expecting that thing to flutter, and like land at the feet of like either Negan or Maggie or someone attack. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like very, very Forrest Gump with the feather, and it lands at, the feet, whatever. That's what I was totally expecting to happen. And I'm like, oh, we're given this like, it's decaying, but also beautiful all at the same time, and blah, blah, blah. And then this falls at and it didn't do that. And so the first time through, I didn't pay attention to that scene much as well. But because that didn't happen, second time through, and that's why we watch it twice, folks, then I didn't have that baggage, and I was able to just be like, forget about the piece of paper, observe all the stuff that's happening around it. So they do stuff like, Herschel just randomly shows up out of nowhere, and then things blow up because they do.
I think Herschel at one point tells her that he was following her, because he says, I know Jenny's dead.
I watched her bury you.
Yeah, so I think that helps explain it, but,
later, but not now.
Oh, I know, and there's so much stuff that you just kind of really have to infer from very little. There's very little, this is what just happened, because when that bomb goes off, and of course we go to the commercial break, one of the things, and first of all, chaos ensues where they are, and the walkers are kind of spilling out all over, and they go down that weird chute that's by the bar, that the Dillard uses to populate his weird ecosystem thing with the different floors, right? And but the other thing that happens is like that explosion like kills all of the New Babylon people except for the Marshal, except for Armstrong. Everyone else dead. Well, and the 2 knuckleheads that the Dama finds, the guys that are nailing up the posters. Other than that, everybody else from New Babylon dies in that explosion somehow. Well, okay. So, but again, do they say that? No. Do we have to figure it out? Yes. Is it hard? Absolutely.
It's not even clear who's behind that door when the guys, those 2 little knuckleheads, are talking.
Yeah.
They're just like, who's that? I don't know. Hang these up. Sarge told us to do it.
Yeah. They're like, well, the one guy's like, we should go in and help. And they're like, no, we should do what we were told and put up these signs or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Anyway, so watching it twice, there's still some holes that I'm like, I'm not quite sure what happened here, but we're going to move on kind of thing. But the explosion was rough. So when we do come back after the explosion, we come back after commercial, and then we have the 4 months previous scene where we learn everything about why Luis and Renata are so angry to have the Croat around. and I think we do see him before we go to commercial, because he essentially saves them. They're outside, and because there's a bunch of walkers that come, and he comes over and he like bumps one off of, that almost attacked them. So he kind of saved them. He's comes from out of nowhere again. And because that's the theme of this whole scene, is people just showing up out of nowhere without explanations, but we'll get them like way later. So they have this tense moment with the Croat. They're so angry, blah, 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 the Croat. Go to commercial, come back. Then we get the explanation of why they feel that way.
Right.
We meet Luis and Renata's people, and they're having a celebration because his brother's wife is going to have a baby, and they're all sort of celebrating, new person. And then he shows up.
Yep.
And is the Croat. I did have one observation, though, which is we went from, in the previous scene, you've got present day Luis, and he looks like he's been in the apocalypse because he's got like a big beard going on. And then they flash back to 4 months previous, and my thought was, it only took him 4 months to build a beard that made him look like the second coming of like the Grizzly Man or something, Grizzly Adams or something.
Right.
So
Jeremiah Johnson.
Exactly. And my feeling is like, if you can't make it seem like believable, then don't do it. It would have been safer, because as soon as they get back and they eventually do what they can do at the end of the episode, he shades right away. So you're supposed to think that in the 4 months since what happened to now, that he was in some sort of funk and didn't shave his beard the whole time. I don't know. The beard confused me.
Maybe he's one of those dudes that, like, right after he gets done shaving, he has to shave again because he already, has the 5 o'clock stubble. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, that's possible.
Yeah.
It's totally possible.
But yes,
but anyway,
it is definitely a very, very, like, more like an 18-month beard that he suddenly has in 4 months.
Yeah. And sorry to spend so much time on it, but these are the things that, like, we talk about. Like, in that moment, those things can really sort of take you out.
Yeah, right. If it doesn't
like
feel authentic, then it doesn't matter how great the story is. That just bothers you. I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't until my second time through that it really hit me. I was like, wait, 4 months? Like, I remembered in the first time through, it must have not hit me because maybe I didn't see, maybe 4 months didn't hit me. I just realized we'd taken, like, a jump back in time. But then hearing the 4, I was like, wow, that's a really bushy beard. Maybe he just grows hair really fast. Who knows?
It could be.
But we do get this, after that, they end up saving the Croat because he has something they want. They need the methane tanks because they need an energy source, because come to find out, that woman is going to have the baby. It's early, and they have access because they live in a hospital. So they have all these things, but they can't use it because they don't have enough power. And they need a power for one of those little incubator things. And their whole plan was they were going to have the Croat bring one of them to him, to their place.
Or teach them how to make one.
Exactly. Now, that explosion that happened, it was the tanks that already existed. And he says, while they're telling him, the dust is settling and they're yelling at him, you need to show us how to do this and blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, it's too late. They all blew up. I had to do it. They should, they couldn't go into the hands. He didn't want all of that knowledge going into the hands of the New Babylon people. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, I had to blow him up. But then come to find out, he still has he has like a prototype. And he has it hidden somewhere. And they're like, take us. He's like, no, not yet. Tell us where it is. And he's like, no, if I tell you, you're going to kill me. And then it starts to get really, hairy outside. So they all go underneath. Maggie and Negan are already down the chute and have fought a bunch of, the dead. And then they come down and they end up taking, I don't know how they do it, but because they get out of their binds, I think. They get cut out of
Yeah,
their binds.
Herschel cuts the zip ties off them.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
when Luis and Renata come down there, they kind of turn the tables on them and disarm
Yeah.
them. And so now
Yeah.
Maggie and Negan are in control. And, yeah.
Yeah. So we end up with this really great scene while they're sort of hiding out, waiting for the horde to disperse after this explosion. They got to wait a little bit. It's a little hairy to go out there. So there's a lot of jibber jabber and catch up happening in this scene where they're down in the basement. And there is one moment where Renata and Maggie end up doing a lot of talking, because they're talking a lot about, you know, the things that Renata and Luis are fighting for their people. And Maggie is, you know, she warms right to that because Renata seems like a leader, that she's fighting for her people. So they end up in these good conversations about like how they approach, you know, the world these days and etc. And there was this really great line when they were talking about like trying to make all the right decisions. There's a great line that Renata says that I wrote down. And she said, you know, through the years it's been really difficult, but she's always chosen the light. And she says, choosing the light after that was the hardest thing I've ever done, when they're talking about, because we get that whole scene where, you know, the Croat kills his brother and his uncle in this terrible, terrible scene. So they basically would want to kill the Croat right now, but they need him to get these, the methane thing. So she is talking about how she reacted after that happened. And she says, choosing the light after that was the hardest thing I've ever done. It still is, but it's a choice I want to keep making. Which I thought was really cool. And I think that really spoke to Maggie, because she's always struggled with, like, you know, Negan didn't struggle with doing the bad stuff. You know, they talk about that later. And he doesn't struggle with doing the bad stuff when he was in charge. But Maggie struggles with it because it's all about that balance between keeping who you were before the world fell and needing to also do terrible things. You know, it's difficult to balance those two out. So I liked that scene that they both shared, and I thought that was really good. I feels like I'm skipping over Steve, listeners, but he did a lot of stuff that happens after they get out of the basement, and I put a couple of things that happened while they were in the basement. So we'll get back to his stuff in a second. Before you know it, it'll be just Steve all the time talking.
Okay.
All the time. Okay. And then the final thing was when they decide to finally leave the underground sort of location and go and search for this prototype. Maggie has to convince Negan, and he's really like, this isn't going to work. It's not going to work. And she says to him, I'm tired of being angry, aren't you? You know, and I don't know what it was about that line, but it pierced something within him, and he decides to go with them to go find that. And then they end up out on the street, dragging the Croat along, and we get these really great scenes with the Croat, which you have some really great quotes from those scenes with the Croat.
But actually, most of the quotes I have are from the flashback scene, but they are good quotes.
Well then let's jump back to I you know what, I saw the Croat and I was jumping, and I didn't even realize that they were. So let's talk about let's jump back to that scene then, and let's talk a little bit about the what the Croat did and his little notes there.
Yeah, we will, but just to comment on your points, yeah, like the whole choosing the light thing. One of the things that just I'm absolutely just not happy with at all is this kind of buddy cop relationship that now Maggie and Negan seem to have. And if you watched any of the interviews, any of the stuff that AMC put out where they talk to JDM or Lauren Cohen, both of them say like the old dynamic was just getting boring to them. You know, this idea, you know, because anyone that watches the show knows that Maggie's going to kill Negan. That's it. That's right. And for two seasons here, they kind of tried to manufacture a reason why she doesn't. You know, the first season, well, we need him because he knows the Croat and he can figure out what he's going to do and, you know, outthink him and all that stuff. And then in season 2, I don't know, she turned him over to the new Babel, whatever she did, or the the Dom or whatever. But they were always kind of manufacturing it. But like deep down inside, we all know, she's going to kill him because that's what she's going to do. And remember, this is the woman who hung Gregory without a trial.
Yeah.
It didn't blink at killing that dude. And what did he do versus what Negan did? It doesn't compare. And so I think the only reason we're getting a season 3 is that those actors were given assurances that dynamic was going to somehow change, because there's only so many ways you can play, because every time they're in the room together, it's this sort of, is Maggie going to kill him? you know what I mean? And so they had to move past it, and I think that's part of why Renata kind of has the same story that Maggie has, that the Croat killed someone very precious to her and special to her, and yet she found a way to move past it. And that way Maggie can be like, see, I'm doing the same thing. And so anyway, I'm glad that landed with you and meant something. But again, you don't have a cold and dead heart like I do. But yeah, that didn't do much for me, because I just, the whole like, oh, I totally should have stabbed you, like all that like playful banter. I'm like, ugh, please don't. This is, the whole season can't be like this. But anyway, there's a couple lines, like you said, we flash back and we see that they're in the hospital and they're like having like a little party where they've even like put like signs up on the wall, and Lewis's brother, and we should point out Lewis and Renata are brother and sister. And so it's like their little brother, he and his partner, I don't know if they're married or what they're doing, she's pregnant, she's gonna have a baby, and he's like wearing this sash that says like Papa on it or something, right? So they like went all out for this, and they got all kinds of food on the table, and nachos and dip, and it's great, right? And they have music playing, and then in walks the Croat and a couple of his minions. And, immediately, everyone stops and the music turns off, and he's like, no, don't stop on my account. Oh, and then he goes, I guess congratulations are in order. And he has this line of like, flowers from the cemetery and the world begins anew, kind of talking about the baby. And right. And as soon as he walked in, anyone who's watched an episode of The Walking Dead before goes, goes, somebody in that room's going to die.
Yeah.
You're like, one of you, thanks for coming. I hope you got all your fill from craft services, because this is your last day on the set, And so he kind of, like, he points out that they're not, like, paying their tribute or whatever they worked out in their deal. And Renata kind of says, well, the deal was kind of forced on us, and to be honest, we don't really need your protection, so let's just like end it. And then he's like, no, you know what? We protect the whole island, and you're a part of that. And so the only way we could end it is if you guys leave. And are you leaving? And they're like, no. And so he's like, so then you got to come up with something. And then this is where we learn that Lewis is a doctor. And he says that he's training some of the guys and gals there in medicine. And the Croat's like, great, that's good. Doctors are good, And then he's like, let's test it out. And so he, like, gut stabs their, like, uncle. Yeah. And to be fair, the uncle was kind of giving the Croat some guff before that, he was like,
he made some comment about, because he'd said the thing about, are you leaving? And he was like, we've been here
longer than you have. And he's just like, dude, what are you doing? It's just like, no, you don't say anything. You hide in the back. Please. You hide in the back row, And so he gut stabs him, and then he has the brother who is the proud papa. He's, it's established that he's one of the guys that Lewis is training. And so he's like, here you go. Here's your test, save him. And so, and of course he can't, he just kind of, yells at the guy not to die. And then the guy dies because, it's bleeding out and stuff. And so then the Croat then basically says, yeah, you're never going to be a doctor. And he like slits his throat and kills him too.
Yeah.
And it's just awful, and of course the whole crowd is like, and Lewis is losing his shirt and all this, this is like where the idea of like, we're going to kill you comes from, right? And And the Croat then goes, I was someone's trainee once. And then he kind of goes, hopefully better than Chucho, because Chucho is the father-to-be who's now lying on the floor in a pool of blood. He goes, and one of the many things my mentor taught me was that killing the right person at the right time makes everyone else fall in line. So I wonder, did I pick the right person? And then he kind of looks back and sees the two guys lying on the floor and goes, persons?
It was like funny, but terrible.
But funny, but scary, And what I love is, of course, he's talking about Negan, as the man who showed him this technique, and it just and this is going to play into one of my points later on, is that it a lot of this episode is bringing up how terrible Negan was back in the day,
right,
when he was running things with the Saviors, and so I thought it was a really effective flashback sequence, and I think it definitely it gives the audience understanding and I think sympathy that, yeah, you know what, those two should kill the Croat, because he got it coming for that. And so I thought that was an effective scene. One of my honorable mentions is that when we eventually get back to the hospital and they go back to that party room, it's like nobody managed to clean it up in 4 months. Because like all the stuff is still on the tables and the signs are up and there's big blood stains on the floor. I'm like, you guys are slobs, But yeah, I thought that was a cool sequence there. But that's all the flashbacky stuff, And so then, like you said, it kind of bounces back to the present, and Maggie and Renata have that little talk, and then Maggie and I think Herschel go off to like search the building and make sure that there aren't any other ways in and all that stuff. And
right.
And it's so great because she's like, now, don't kill anybody while I'm gone. And
yeah.
And Negan is just sitting there, and the other two people are there. And so they Herschel and Maggie go up, and they have a little scene where Herschel like kind of goes, sorry, I sided with the Dama and not you, Mom, and all that, right?
Yeah, I feel better now.
I won't. I promise I probably won't kill you. All that kind of stuff. And they kind of have their little moment, and I think he says that he's tired of being angry too. He's like, I don't want to feel that way anymore. And she's like, me too. And then she tells him that when this is done, they're going to go back home to the bricks, which obviously they don't. So I'm sure now he hates her again. But and anyway, while they're up there, then they hear this commotion from down in the cellar where everybody else is, and they run down there, and of course Lewis is like this close to killing the Croat, right? And my finger and my thumb are like an eighth of an inch apart right now, so you can't see it, but that's what it's doing. And so they have to separate him, and then she looks over at Negan and she's like, were you gonna stop this? And Negan is playing with this little toy, and he goes, no, I'm putting the little ball in the little cup.
It was great. Because he looks like he's such a child.
Oh, yeah.
And he's in full-on child mode for both of these episodes, really.
Yes.
And he's just leaning really hard into that. Ugh.
Yeah. And so you're right. And so they, the Croat then dishes that weight. There actually is one more cylinder or whatever left. Mm-hmm. And then I also, and this I thought was like very writery and bad when he's like, and all the instructions and blueprints to make more, and you're like, of course, right? Because he's dying. We find out he's been bit or scratched or something, so he's he's got a finite amount of time left anyway. And so that's when Maggie's like, come on, Negan, we have to help them. And this is the moment. It's 27 minutes in, and this is when the show got interesting, because Renata's like, it's to save a baby. She makes that public to Negan. And what is like the hot button for Negan for the history of the show?
Oh, it's always kids.
It's kids. It's children, right?
Yeah.
When a kid's involved, Negan will do whatever it takes to try and help them or save them, right? But in this case, when she says that, what does Negan say? He says, good luck, because that kid's got no shot, and you shouldn't even try to bring it into this world. Which for Negan, that is not him. right? That is a
Yeah.
huge reversal from him, from where we've seen him since he was locked up, let's say. I mean, yeah, he kind of took a liking to Carl when he snuck in on the truck and all that stuff, right? But I mean, like the rehabilitated Negan, much more like, oh my God, save the children at all costs. And that was at that moment, that's when I kind of sat up in my chair and went, wait a minute, because this, I think we're gonna, and I want to see what they're gonna do. But the next episode, and this is why I really like the next episode 2, so much, a lot more than this one, is that they continue on with what I hope they're gonna do, and that is, this is what I'm kind of calling, are we seeing the new old Negan?
I wonder.
And we'll get into it more when we do our points for episode 2. But I mean, literally, Negan is like dragged into helping. I mean, Maggie basically has to be like, just do this for me, kind of a thing, and
Yeah.
I mean, that's because, and like I said, previously, as soon as the mention of kid or baby would come out, Negan would be like, well, what are we standing around for? Let's go. And this time around, he's literally like, no, this is stupid. If we go out there, we're just going to get killed, most likely. And even if we make it, even if you can set up this methane, tube and get it running and make the incubator work, and the kid survives the pregnancy, he's still screwed. He still has no shot to make it in this world. And that I just thought that was the most interesting thing that happened in this whole episode for me personally.
Yeah.
Well, what did you think about that moment?
I mean, I don't like the idea of, first of all, Negan was never my favorite character.
Yes.
So, and neither was Maggie, which is why I've always had such a hard time with this show. And I even said going in, I'm like, and we struggled with that in the first season too. The very, just all of this, like, going after, like, the Croat and the Barazzi, and remember that scene when he, like, sliced the guy's neck or whatever, like, and always the conversation about, is he back to being like the old Negan or whatever. And I agree that there are some there's some stuff that's sort of pushing through that make him a lot like his old self. But honestly, I just think, I said this during the main show too, I don't think he ever really changed. So I think he's just leaning into those things. I think those things never went away. He sort of suppressed them maybe.
Yep.
But I feel like if he's going to be acting like old Negan, then he's just sort of embracing, like, this is who I am. Like, I can't change,
Yes.
And it's interesting because you put that up against episode 2 when they start talking about the Dhamma and can people change, and Renata and Maggie have that conversation.
Yeah, and Maggie says,
like,
she knows one person who did.
But is she talking about him?
I thought so. I thought absolutely she was talking about him, because I mean, we'll get to that when we get to episode 2, because I thought, I loved the irony. First of all, episode 2, oh my God, are there a lot of references to the old show. I mean, they bring up all kinds of people and places. She mentions the frickin' prison in that. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. But yes, the irony of when she goes, well, here's our choices. We can either kill them or lock them up forever. And we'll get there. But I agree that did Negan really change? That was always the big question. And I think a lot of us wanted to think or hope that he did, but I think most of us think that he just kind of shined up his image and suppressed his, what he wanted to do, because it was the way to survive, So
right, he's one of those. He's a true chameleon. He becomes whatever he needs to be to exist in that moment.
Yes. Yeah. So. Anyway, yeah. So they get there, and I think it's like at the Croatian, like, embassy or some, like, Croatian, like, center or something. That's where he's hidden this thing, and so they go, and they go in and they get it, and while they go in to get it, the Croat, kind of has his last moment, and good old Zeljko was done for the day, and I'm sure they all gave him a round of applause when they called cut, because that was it for him, because he dies and he's gone. So, and I did like that. There's a real great kind of a snap edit where, he dies, and then Negan takes the knife that Maggie gave him, and he lifts it up, by his head, and he's clearly going to drive it into the Croat's forehead or whatever to make sure he doesn't come back. And just as his hand goes down, it cuts to the hospital, and one of the doors in the hospital slams shut. And I just thought that was a really nice transition, where we kind of have the sound of the knife and the sound of the door becoming the same thing. So I thought that was kind of cool. But
yeah. So I think next up, you've got this note about the 27-minute mark.
Yeah.
What's that?
That's what I was saying. When Negan refused to help a kid, that was the moment where the show got interesting, because to me it's like that's not the Negan we've seen for the last 4 or 5 years. This is different. This is new, and gotcha. I want to see where it's going to go. And then my only other note is, of course, eventually Negan leaves them, and she's like, "Where are you going?" And he's like, "This is a bar, right? I'm going to go find a drink." And he goes up into the bar, and this is where we meet this season's weirdo character, Dillard. Played by the great Jimmy Simpson, who everybody will probably recognize from Westworld. I think that's probably the biggest thing he's done. But he's done a bunch of stuff, too, other stuff. So, he's the guy who is, the crazy guy who is, like, running the bar, and he has a couple of ghouls kind of, like, strapped down to various parts of the bar, and he moves them around, right? When he sings karaoke, brings them over there and all this. And what does he say? He like pulled all their teeth and their fingernails out. Is that what he did? So they can only kind of like gum you a little if they get up close. and again, it's a cool visual, I guess, but like we were talking about earlier this weekend when we were together, there's one thing about all of, not just The Walking Dead, but just all of the zombie shows, movies, whatever, is that the sense of smell is just completely removed from the equation. Nobody, very rarely do people go, "Oh my God, do these things stink?" And I think if any of you listening out there, you've ever had a mouse die in the wall of your house or your apartment, and like we're talking like a little teeny mouse, right? How bad is that smell?
Yeah. Not a mouse, but when I was working at the diesel company years ago, we had a bunny.
A bunny?
That came in the garage, and it died behind. We had this big rack that was filled with those big, like, 5-gallon bottles you use for your water coolers. And this big rack, and it crawled in there, and it died behind there. We're pretty sure that we had stuff from Orkin around the building to keep rats out, so and sometimes something else will eat those things. Right. And so it came inside, and that was after a while you're like, and here's the thing, guys that work in a garage are smelly. So they just are. So we just didn't think anything of it. And then when we finally shut the doors, when it was almost like fall, we're like, "Oh, it's chilly out today. Close the garage doors while you guys are working so it doesn't get cold."
Oh, no.
And then the guys are like, "What's that smell?" And then I would go through the door. I'm like, "What's that smell?" And when we finally figured it out, let's just say that it needed to be removed with a shovel.
Yes.
And scraped off the floor. So basically, I'm right there with you. Yeah, the smell thing, how is that never a thing?
How is that never a thing? Yeah, and we're not talking about just one. I mean, there's thousands of corpses in New York City, right? And the fact that you would have two of them in the room with you, and it's like, I don't see that as a thing. I really don't. And that bothers me that they just absolutely ignore it. Although you did point this out, and is correct that in episode 2, Maggie does mention the stench.
She does.
It doesn't stop them from going in there, but she does mention it, So
it would just be interesting if, when he found the bar and he was there, like, people should enter a room like that. You go from a room that has no dead people in it, and then you go into the next room and there are dead people in it. There should at least be a...
Yeah.
Ooh.
But
Are there walkers in there?
But before you even get to the door, you'd smell it. You know what I mean? It's just that's the thing about that, like, kind of sickly sweet smell of death, is that, first of all, it is a very long range from the dead thing. You know, I mean, it's at my work we had like a big rat die behind the lockers, and oh my God, I mean, and it took forever for us to find it because we didn't know that's where it was. And I mean, it was like you wouldn't go in the office, which is like down maybe about 20 yards away from where it was, because in the office the smell was so god awful. I mean, yeah, it was terrible. And that's like a rat. That, don't get me wrong, it was a big rat, but still, it's like one teeny little thing. And here you're talking about, thousands and thousands of corpses that are just roaming around, and no one ever blinks at the smell. And so that kind of bugs me. I like Jimmy Simpson, and I like the way the character is kind of being developed, and they kind of explain a little bit of why he's so weird. And I also like that Negan is like, dude, cut it out. I thought that was nice, that he's like, look, man, I like you and I want to hang out with you, but you got to stop all this weird ass shit. Cause the character of Dillard, he like thinks he can like talk to the ghouls, and he can interpret when they kind of do the, he's like, she just said that she kind of likes you, and Negan's like, what planet are you from? So
he's like, I'm from Earth, and we're like, are you?
Are you though? So that's my take on him. What did you think when we were introduced to Jimmy and his crazy bar?
I'm right there with you that he is our stereotypical resident weirdo, and he's going to be some kind of comedic, or he's going to add to like the the comic elements of the show, as it were. But I felt like the whole, and I know they deal with it in episode 2, so we'll talk about it there. But in the beginning, I was like, really talking to the ghouls, and he just seemed a little bit off his rocker. I also, when he was talking to Negan about, he's, because Negan does give him some shit. He's like, you've been here by yourself this whole time. And it's true. Like, his apartment was right upstairs above the bar. And I was like, really? We see Negan go back there after they get the stuff and go back to the hospital, when they go to the embassy and get the stuff for the Croat. He goes back to the bar, and you see him go through the front door. And it's bright yellow.
It's bright yellow, and it's unlocked.
And you're telling me no one, like, he's never seen the Croat before?
Right.
He has no idea who that is.
Doesn't know who the Dama is. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I think that's, because he's got the lights on and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. They only employ any kind of, like, let's hide, until like episode 2, when we see Maggie come up with her little security system, but that's it. Like, they never, and his door is like this bright yellow color. I don't know. Like, I want to hope for better use of him, because like you said, Jimmy Simpson's a really great actor. And he has been very interesting to watch so far, but you get tired of the trope. And I don't want his character to be tropey, because I think he's a better actor than that. So I hope that they flesh it out a little bit more. We do get some more in episode 2, which we'll talk about when we get there. But my first initial reaction was, I was like, I wasn't super impressed. And it felt to me like that kind of like guest starring role where it's like, this might be only like a one-off or an episode. And I really didn't want that to happen. So I was really disappointed in how they started off with the character, and I was hoping that it'll change a little bit. So we'll have to see how it goes further from episode 2 and see if they build on him even more. So
yeah. I agree. Like, as soon as we started to learn his kind of deal, I was just sort of like, okay, this is just like straight out of the Walking Dead playbook. That going back to like Princess. Right, when we first meet her, and she's weird, and she's got the little tableaus of the walkers set up all in her neighborhood, and all the stuff that she did, and the way she dressed and everything, and just she's just a little odd, and right. And I'm just sort of like, man, we've seen that, and it's just, it's too fantastic, like you said. It's like there's just no way that bar wouldn't have been ransacked for everything,
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
See, I think that's the hardest part. Like, with Princess, you accept it because she happened to be in an area where there were no people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much more rural in Georgia, so where she was located, wherever her sort of area was, it felt like it was in the middle of nowhere, and she's the only person left. Dillard, on the other hand, he's the only person left in his little, apartment area.
Yeah.
He made it seem like there were people with him.
Oh,
at
he
the
says
beginning.
that people either died or left.
Yeah. So in that case, I still, like you were saying and I was saying too, I find it hard to believe that he'd be left there on his own and not bothered.
Yeah.
In any way.
Yeah.
I
have to say the only part about him that in this episode that I found at all interesting was the weird ecosystem he'd set up where he has the maggots eating the corpses on the second floor, and then on the third floor
closed loop vegetation
whatever it was, right? I was gonna write it down and I forgot, and then the next floor he says he's got the frogos eating the magos. And then the next floor are turkeys that eat the frogos, and he's like, and then he's like, it goes all the way up to coyotes, and then he kind of throws in, which are delish, by the way. But anyway, I mean, I thought that was kind of clever, like a good use of space, and how you can sort of keep your own food system going. And in a way that it's like, maybe that would work. I mean, I don't know. Can turkeys live in a closed space like that? I don't know. Can coyotes? I don't know. Wouldn't the frogs all leave? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know the realities of it. I just thought that's cool. I'm like, all right, I would get that he had the gumption to set that up. That's kind of fun. So, but other than that though, he strikes me, at least in episode 1, as just your typical, okay, I'm going to be the oddball character that we're gonna try to rely on, but there's always gonna be that, when is he gonna have his weirdo moment, and is it gonna be at an inopportune time, and all that stuff. So anyway.
But still kind of liked him. So.
Oh yeah, I think you said I love Jimmy Simpson, so I'm sure he's gonna be fun, and we see in episode 2 he is kind of funny, and so on, and he and Negan clearly start bonding in the next episode and stuff. It's just, I wish it would have been a better written character than not just kind of the stereotypical, and you get to be the weird guy.
Right, and really, really lean into it.
Yeah.
And he's, because he is a good actor, it's better than you think it would be, but it's still not great.
Yeah. Right.
Hopefully it'll get better.
Right.
But like we said, we have to be hopeful here. So they get what they need to get done.
Mm-hmm.
They actually get the methane tank back. They're able to get it all hooked up and set up correctly. There's this really poignant moment where, Luis admitted that, he brained his uncle, but he hasn't done anything to his brother just yet.
Right.
Because he can't do it. But they're in the middle of delivering this baby. She's in labor, and she's like, I'll be right back. And they're like, where are you going? And he's like, well, the tank's going to need some fuel. Mm-hmm. It's going to need some dead for it, right?
Yep.
So he goes, and you see him, and, his brother's been locked up in this office, and he goes in and does the killing. And they show this really, everything goes well,
mm-hmm.
and the baby's born.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a good job because, for a premature baby, they showed this really tiny, tiny, skinny arm reaching out to Yvette is her name, once the baby's born, and that it was like a really small hand. Obviously, it must have been animatronic or a puppet or something.
Or CGI or something,
And then what they put inside the little warmer there,
the
incubator, you only see a little bit of the baby's body. So you don't have to sit there and go, that's not a premature baby. Because they do a good job of, we can't make this look believable yet, so let's just not show it.
Right.
Which I wish more people would do that.
Yes.
Because it was much more believable that was a premature baby, because they showed us very, very little of it. And you had to just, imagine. And wouldn't it be great if people could just imagine things now instead of being told what things were?
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. So after all of that, Negan's getting ready to leave and go back, and Maggie tells, she's like, why he wants to know from Maggie. Maggie wants to know what changed his mind. Why did he decide to go with them to go get the thing? Because he was so adamantly against it. He's in a bar with some crazy guy and some walkers, and he's drinking beers.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks to him and gets him to go. And when she's like, well, I don't understand why you changed your mind. And he's like, because you said you needed me. And
Did you think of the song by Anne? What's her name? The Canadian gal who did "You Light Up My Life."
Oh, Anne Murray.
Anne Murray, yes. You needed me. Remember that song?
I do remember that song.
There you go.
He must have had that in his head. I'm sure he did.
I did.
So I just included that because it was clearly some type of moment for Negan there in that scene. And she does the whole, you should stay. And he's like, I don't belong here,
right,
or whatever. And she's like, so her whole point was, if you think you don't belong in a group of people, why did you even help us to begin with? You think this baby's going to die.
Yeah.
So why did you help us no matter what? And he's like, you said you needed me.
That's right.
And that was the thing that did it. So now we know for the rest of the season, there's going to be some moment where he's not going to help out, and Maggie's going to say, I need you, Negan.
I need you. I can't quit you, Negan. Yeah.
Oh, God.
And we should also point out that, after the baby's born, there's this, big, like, they're running the power to the hospital, and Renata and Luis's group is there, and Maggie kind of like is like kind of brought into the fold, and Renata's like, you should stay. And you should stay here. And one of the things the Croat said before he died was that, they could, with the plans and stuff, they could build enough of the methane tanks to power the whole island. And then he goes, think of it, your homes have reliable power, and you could, plant crops, and you could hunt the wildlife that's here. And, you're living on a fortress because this is an island. It's surrounded by water and all this. And Renata kind of, reiterates that to Maggie of like, instead of going back to the bricks and trying to make it there, you should just come here. You're already here, stay here, and Maggie's like, okay. You know what I mean? And she's like, yeah, fine. So obviously she's going to buy into this new community and try and give it a go. And so that's kind of where that ends up with her and the new group, right? And then of course we see Negan going back to the bar because that's where he wants to be. So
right, exactly. And that kind of wraps up the little bit of the end of that episode. The only other thing I wanted to mention was after she does say, "Oh, I need you," and he does come along begrudgingly to help her. They have this little sparring match where he's like, I should have stabbed you. Well, you didn't, or you weren't going to do it. And he says back to her, is like, oh, I was so going to do it.
Yes. See, that it's funny, but it's like the buddy cop thing that I just like, no, these two characters would never get to that. So I'm sorry. I just, you kill somebody's husband in front of them as brutally as he did. I don't see you trading quippy, funny one-lines later on down the road with them. I don't. So.
No, but she's also in a place right there in that moment where she needs him, like she said. And she is trying to turn over a new leaf with the whole, I don't want to be angry anymore. So I guess maybe laugh at his jokes. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Plus, it's been like 14 years.
Okay, is that enough time? If some,
I don't know.
If someone takes a baseball bat to your beloved wife, is 14 years enough time for you to be like, it's fine?
It depends. Will that person be as good looking as Jeffrey Dean Morgan? I think that's the whole point.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I'm as good looking, but I do make good cookies.
You do.
So maybe that would buy me some forgiveness.
I don't think so.
No.
So anything else that we should talk about? I
think so. Yeah, I think we hit everything there. Like I said, kind of underwhelming, except for the Negan change that I'm excited about, but other than that, it was very kind of standard by the numbers, and a lot of like, all that stuff from the first two seasons we're not going back to.
Absolutely. All right, so that wraps up our conversation on episode 1. And we're going to go ahead and jump right into our discussion on episode 2. So first off, let's start off with a quick episode description, and we'll talk the writer and director for this episode, and then go back into this episode. So Steve, go ahead.
All right, so this now is, again, The Walking Dead, Dead City, episode 3.2, and the title of this episode is Haven. Not Heaven. Haven. And the description we have from the chat bots is as follows. Maggie and Negan deal with old enemies and confront new challenges. Very interesting. Very interesting. I think that out of all the descriptions they could have written, this is one of them.
The most descriptory of the descriptions. That's the best I can say.
Yeah, exactly. So that's our description. And again, like I said, our director for this episode is the same person as episode 1, which is Sharat Raju. And like I said, all the stuff he did, the big Walking Dead universe person in terms of directing. Our writer, though, for this time around is different in that it's this guy, Seth Hoffman, who I mentioned previously. He is the showrunner now. He's the new showrunner for the show. So they, I guess, decided to have one of the, old pros write episode 1 with Matthew Negretti or Bob Kirkman, depending on who you want to believe. The credits said one thing and the IMDb says something else. But, they had them write that. And I'm guessing they did that maybe because there was so many things they had to kind of get rid of and move through and move past, to kind of set up the story. That they just said, yeah, let this guy do it because, they're a pro and they know how to do it. And you can focus on episode 2 when the palette or the canvas has kind of been set up for you to now start painting. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, Seth Hoffman, he has, again, a lot of connection with Walking Dead. He was a producer on the main show for about 7 years or about 48 episodes. So a long time involved with the show. He also was a producer for the show House, if you remember that show with Hugh Laurie. He was a producer for about 45 episodes of that show. He was a writer for this show Prison Break, if you remember that Fox show. And he was in the writing room, I'm guessing, because he's credited in 59 episodes of that show. So that's a lot. And he also wrote, or I should say co-wrote, the screenplay with a certain Scott Gimple of the movie Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, which is one of the Nick Cage Ghost Rider movies from maybe about 15 years ago or so. So he certainly, he's worked a lot, obviously, in the television field. He's done a lot of writing in the television field, and he obviously has a long connection with the Walking Dead world. And I think he's kind of like Eli Jorn, that he was a dude that put his time in on the main show, and when the spinoff came around, they gave him a shot. So we'll have to see what he does. Like I said, I'm interested in it. I don't think the story is all that great, but I'm really interested in what they're doing with Negan, particularly in this episode. So we'll have to see. But that is our writer and our director. All
right. So much like the last episode, I wanted to talk first, we usually do, about the cold open. And there was, again, it's a long one. And it starts off with all these really great scenes of, Maggie and Herschel have both decided to stay. Renata and Luis's group at the hospital. And so there's like this music playing in the background. There's a song about Manhattan, old-timey song playing. Wow.
Let me ask you, did that song not sound like it could totally be in Fallout?
Yes. It had because of that whole feel. It was, yes.
That old-timey feel, yes. Yeah.
And so... And it was well used because you figure one of the things that everybody keeps trying to do is to recreate the old world or try and get back to as many things as they can with the old world. So using a song like that felt very appropriate. Plus, they're talking about Manhattan and stuff like that, so it's also...
Oh, yeah. Well, one of the main lyrics of the song is, we'll turn Manhattan into a happy place.
And
which is what we're watching Maggie in the process of doing.
She's certainly trying to. And we see a lot of effort in that cold open, because it's all, first they're combing through all of the wreckage of the explosion. They're gathering and they're getting as many supplies as they can out of that. And then it's all, setting up these security systems. And then Maggie finds this, because now they have the power, they're able to set up all these different things, including she sets up these security lights so that when they flash red, then that means, and they have these security cameras that they set up that give them views of the street and all the surrounding area so they can, keep an eye on things. And she also finds this, it's one of those sound listening devices where it looks like you're almost holding like a little satellite dish in your hand.
It's like a parabolic mic. That's what they call it. Yeah.
I knew you'd know the real word for it.
Yeah.
You're a sound guy and all.
I'm a sound guy.
We see her doing all of this stuff, and then you contrast that, with, then they show Negan, and he's slowly becoming like a couch potato, and because they have power in the building, he's able to play video games, and he just gets sucked into video games all the time, and he's there playing, and then it dissolves, and you realize that the song that's being played is actually Dillard. He's singing it in karaoke, and he's got one of the ghouls up there with him. It's really creepy.
Oh yeah.
But then it's like Negan looks, and he's like rolls his eyes and goes back to playing the video game. So I thought that was a really interesting opening to sort of show the difference between what they're aspiring to do and what Negan is actually doing. But let's talk about your number one, because it's actually, before they even get into the world building, your number one was the very first images we got from from this episode. So let's talk about yours.
Yeah. I thought it was a real cool, obviously CG shot, but still it was great. The song starts, and we got this drone shot of the Statue of Liberty, and much like we see in the opening credits, the Statue of Liberty now is very ghoul-like, because very much like Fallout ghoul-like, really, because the nose has fallen off of the statue, and you can see there are like big holes in it, and like on the arm that's holding the torch, big chunks of the arm have fallen away, and you can see the like metal lattice support stuff inside, that is obviously the internal part of the skeleton of the statue. And we kind of zoom in on the head of the Statue of Liberty, and you see the arm holding the torch, and then the whole camera, the shot rotates 90 degrees, so the head is now sideways and the arm is at the bottom of the screen. And then again, I thought that just like in episode 1, when they transition with the knife thrust into the Croat, into the door closing at the hospital, here once the statue is at a 90 degree turn, they do a quick cut to a ghoul on the ground it's a female ghoul with her arm out in the exact same pose.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Maggie or Renata or somebody puts a knife. I think it's Maggie.
Yeah.
And it's clearly like Maggie's people are clearing out the rubble from the explosion, because this ghoul is like a New Babylon soldier that was trapped under a big piece of rock from the building. Right. And once it's dead, she reaches, underneath down, into like the coat, and she pulls out like a pistol.
Yes. And
gives it to Herschel, and then Herschel, there's like this big wagon that's just full of guns and bullets and grenades. And so like clearly going to all these New Babylon, because like the whole New Babylon army apparently was on the island, and apparently they were all standing right next to that building when it blew up, because they're all dead.
Yeah.
And so now they're using all of their stuff to arm and equip the new group. and that's where we get it. But I just love the transition from the Statue of Liberty to the ghoul. I thought that was really, really clever and well done. Did that strike you?
Yeah.
Where you're like, ooh.
Yeah, I was going to make a note about it, but I saw that you had it, so I knew we were going to talk about it.
Okay.
But yeah, I liked that. It was a nice little transition because in the image, when they're showing the Statue of Liberty, the camera tilts, and then it's like it matches the same like position that the ghoul was in. And so I thought that was really cool, and it also gave us a nice as the camera sort of came back from the scene, like pulled back, and you see Maggie pulls the pistol out or whatever, you get a really good idea, and you see all the other people working. It transitions from this great visual and also shows you that they mean business. They're clearing out all of these bodies. You can see that they're moving like rubble aside, and that they're pulling out supplies and things that they can find, and guns is definitely one of them. So
sure.
So yeah, it was a really good scene. Great sort of establishing shot. And once you see that they meant business, then it goes into the stuff I was talking about. It's that world building, we're here, we're trying to improve, or making things better, and because they have the power, they're able to do all this other stuff. And then it's couch potato Negan.
Well, and that's why I would differ a little, and this is why I am excited about where the show's going, because I think when I watch this little montage that we get, we see Maggie is fully into the new Maggie, which is the follow the light or whatever Renata said, and help everybody. And we see her, and she's doing all the stuff you said. She's putting up the cameras, and she's installing the emergency, the red flashing light, right? And there's a scene where she takes the little box of toys and sets it down, and the little girl gets out like a little stuffed animal, and it's she's like totally buying into this like kinder and gentler version of herself. Right. And then we get Negan, and when I see Negan sitting on a couch playing video games, my thought is that's how Negan was when we first meet him in the flashback episode during the COVID season.
Right.
And so to me, we're not just seeing Negan just doing nothing and being a couch potato. I see it as Negan's going back to being Negan.
I could see that.
And so I really am interested to see, and then the way this episode plays out, and when we see what Negan does and how he acts, and the advice that he gives to Maggie throughout this episode, it is very much old Negan. I mean, it's old Negan, but without all of the like dramatic flair and kind of put on your pee pants kind of lines. It's much more just straightforward, but it's still old Negan in terms of how he's saying you should go about doing things. And that's what has me so excited, because I want to see, how far are they going to push him into what he was? Has he given up? Like, was Jenny's death, was that kind of like the last straw on this whole like trying to be a good guy thing that he was doing? And we didn't talk about this, but remember I believe in episode 1, and maybe it's in this episode, there's a point where he's talking to the marshal. It must be this episode. And the marshal talks about, like, I know, like, going back to, like, be with your family sounds foreign to you. And he says something like, they're better off without me, and I'm way better off without them.
Yeah, and when he said that, I was like, that's a cringy line.
That is, right? Because that just tells me that, like, man, he is literally like, I tried it. I really tried to be a Jedi. I really did.
Yeah.
But you know what? Screw it. I'm going back to the dark side. I mean, and I really want to see if they're going to keep that up. And I'm hoping that you got some of that in there, because it was really obvious to me.
It wasn't to me, but I think I also think too that you're a little bit more in tune with like a male state of mind, like how he would. So I don't know, and I'm not paying attention to like some of Negan's stuff just because he's not my favorite. So, and like I said, he's been this guy. So I didn't equate the video games with him in the old days, because to me, that, and you're right, that's very much like what he was in, the pre-times, in the old days, but he's not, I'm thinking more about how he is going back into being the person who was at the sanctuary. And the guy at the sanctuary wouldn't sit and play video games all day. So that's how I interpreted that scene.
Okay. All right, that's
I
cool.
feel like
All
when they talk about him going back to who he is, I don't think in his head he thinks he has much connection to that guy we saw in that flashback episode. I don't think he has much connection. And I know she says the thing about, you were a gym teacher, like, about that stuff, but it didn't, and I understand, since you were already in tune with that scene read that way to you, but it just didn't for me. I didn't see that. I saw it more of him as more, and yes, that's part of him sliding back into being himself, more himself again, is him giving up. He doesn't care about, they're actually, while this is happening, they're having a party because they're saying goodbye to Armstrong.
Yeah.
And he's not there because he doesn't care.
He didn't care. Yeah.
Right. And, even like Dillard is doing like silly karaoke, which I don't see Negan doing karaoke either, but he doesn't like giggle at him or, make jokes or do whatever. He literally just looks at him and like rolls his eyes and looks away and goes back to play. You know what I mean? Like to me, he seems more closed off than anything in that scene. I don't know. That's just how it read to me.
Yeah.
But I totally,
I can see that too.
But I totally forgot that he played video games in that flashback moment that we saw for that COVID episode. So I just didn't even make the connection because I completely forgot about that. So
when it first happened, it didn't make the connection. I made the connection when Dillard like kind of shapes up and gets rid of the ghouls in the bar, and then he's like, hey, you think you could like teach me how to play that video game?
Yeah.
And it's so great because he's like, I don't know, do you want me to? And then Dillard's like, I don't know, do you want me to want you to? You know what I mean? It's very, very fun. Like they're obviously messing with each other, but then the sequence where they're playing, Negan is in full-blown mode with all of the, insults and the way he was talking to the kids and when he was in the flashback episode. So that's when it hit me, and I'm like, oh, my God, he's going back to how he used to be.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and like, you're right. It's like the Sanctuary Negan, obviously was doing a lot more stuff and didn't have time to play video games. Probably didn't have power to play video games too, but certainly didn't have the time and was trying, doing all the stuff that he was doing. But I just think that since we're seeing him back at the way he was at the very beginning, that's not good because that means he's closer to the Savior Negan than he ever has been in a long time. So
true, at least on the outside. I think it's always been there, but who am I? But I've been saying that since the end of the main series. Everybody was like, he's changed. I'm like, he hasn't fucking changed. He's still the same guy, just the right trigger. So, and maybe Ginny,
he has it.
Maybe losing Ginny was his trigger, and he's closed his mind off to, Annie and Joshua being in danger because of him. So if they're away from him, they're better off, And yes, that comment he said about him being better off was just, that was very cringy. So before we see this scene where they have the party, Maggie, it's really cool because whatever's they're upstairs from the hospital or whatever. They're these like full-on apartments, and Maggie and Herschel are in this really nice apartment. But she comes by and he is working on a little cadaver, which you wrote about there. So let's chat about that.
I did, yeah. Yeah, he's clearly, like you said, he's clearly been under the tutelage of Luis Luis to learn medical stuff, right? And Luis is like an emergency doctor, which is like a really good one to have, right? With my luck, I'd get like a podiatrist or something, right? You're like, oh, great. When I get a bunion, I'll call you, But I mean, that guy, he's obviously has experience and trained to deal with gunshot wounds and stab wounds and, the stuff that probably are going to happen, so that's great. And he's trying to do what he told the Croat he was doing before in the flashback from episode 1, that he's teaching people so they can do it. And so Herschel is practicing in their apartment, 3F, by the way. And like we know that because we see it when Negan comes to visit her. But he has like a cadaver arm on the table, and like the forearm part has been cut open and all the tendons are exposed. And he's like literally got like a pair of pliers, and he's like pulling on the tendons, and of course all the fingers are moving in response with the tendons. And he does it, and he moves like a finger or two, and then he does all of them and they make a fist. And then he like does something where he loosens one, and the cadaver gives the bird.
Oh, it's great. It's really great.
And it's so funny because then he like does that like he said duty, you know what I mean? He has that like that kind of like I'm still a kid and this is hilarious to me. Yes. And yeah, it was again, it was a neat little comic moment that, I mean, I would have done it.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I think it felt very real.
Yeah,
I like it too.
I like it too because in the scene, I mean, there's that funniness, but also we get some really great more world building information. You see him sort of get very attached to Luis in episode 1. He's immediately like, what can I do to help? What can I do to help? It's like it immediately interests him. And you can see them sort of hanging out together after the baby is born, and they're chatting a bunch. Then there's this, so you're like, oh, that's interesting. Perhaps he could learn some medicine or whatever, some first aid. And then you see him with this cadaver arm. And he even says, he's like, Luis said he's going to quiz me at the party. So he's all nervous about it. So it's nice to know, like, he's not just going to draw, like, macabre drawings for the rest of his life. That's not going to be his world. So his character has found something to sort of be, to feel like he's contributing and learning and becoming part of the community. So I liked it. It was a great scene. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was really fun, and like you said, we also kind of learned that he's taking it seriously because he's studying. Doesn't he say like he's going to get quizzed?
Yeah, something. Yeah, he's going to get quizzed at the party from Luis. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, good scene. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so they're in the midst of this party, saying goodbye to Armstrong, which sadly in this episode happens like 2 or 3 times. I feel like before you know it, you're like, didn't you already leave? When you saw him at the very end in the canoe, I was like, didn't you leave already? But anyway, so they're in the midst of saying goodbye to him, and they're doing this party, and the red light goes off. And they look outside. They have Negan look outside because it's a little closer to where they are, and they're all attached to the same system. And it's the same knuckleheads from that first episode.
Yep.
And now we already know because we saw the Dama approach them in episode 1, which we didn't chat about, but
we didn't chat about. That's the very end.
Yeah,
she finds them.
Yeah, after the explosion, they're trying to get away from the dead, and they're hiding in an alley, and she shows up and is like, "I can, there's more to be done, and I can help you," and blah blah blah. So, so she's got some more, folks to
more minions
to manipulate. And so when you see them, you already know, like in your head, we know, but they don't know yet. We know that they're working for the Dama. And then Maggie's up on the roof with the parabolic microphone thing, and she's listening, and she's like, I can't hear, hang on. And they say they're looking for food, and it's for the Dama. And she's like, what? In face. So she goes and she grabs Negan and is like, we got work to do. And they all, it's Negan and Maggie and Armstrong. Yep. And they go and follow these guys. They go into the theater across the street. And so they follow over there. And there's this really interesting scene where they are like saying like poetry, or I know it's not from an actual text, but they're sort of pontificating on this
very
stage.
Shakespearean.
Yeah, it's got a very Shakespearean feel, but because they're talking about the Dama in
like
this.
Nostradama. our lovely
Dama.
I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, you guys, and
Very,
Negan's
very-
great, where he's like, that sucked.
Yeah, it was very rhymy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so they were up on the stage, and there's all this, like, it looks like there's some sort of set piece going on there, but some of it is just the overgrowth from the apocalypse. There's, like,
Right.
like vines and trees and stuff like that. And then our guys come in and interrupt, and Negan, of course, is being himself. And Maggie's trying really hard because she heard her say the Dama, and she knows she just wants to find out where the Dama is. She doesn't care about these guys. She doesn't want to hurt them. She doesn't want to do anything.
And she brings food.
Yeah. She's
And
like, we
she
got some
sets
food.
out some apples, and she's like, here, take the food. You don't have to, we're not going to hurt you. Basically, all we want to know is where the Dama is. So you tell us, you can leave, we won't come after you. And they're, at first you think they're like, cool with it, or at least considering it, but then you kind of go, no, they've been drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, absolutely. And while Maggie's trying to like talk to them, Negan out of nowhere makes comments about the painting, which you included.
Yeah, well, it's what's the sponsor for this week's episode, so
Yes. So we have to talk about it.
He's looking at it, and then he just kind of interrupts and goes, I mean, I'm not much of a painting guy, but those are some sweet ass boobies. and then of course the guy on stage is like, no, those are the two hills of like civilization. And he's like, they look like boobies, man.
Yeah.
And literally Maggie's like, are you done?
And he's like, I don't think so.
yeah, right. And I mean, to be honest, I guess I should ask you. I mean, I thought they were boobs. What did you think?
Well, yes, they did. They're so clearly boobies. But the best part about that scene to me was AMC is again stretching the envelope for curse words and language. But I feel like boobies is an acceptable one. So he says boobies so many times.
He does.
And I'm just like, he's just enjoying the fact that boobies isn't a technical cuss word, and he's just gonna say boobies until the cows come
boobies,
home.
boobies. Yes. And we should point out the painting. It's these two green like hills, and there are like little people in there. But at the top of each hill, I'm just gonna say, in kind of the general areola vicinity of a boob, is like a little like building that is very pointy.
Yeah, it's got a roof on it, just like all nipples.
yes. I mean, so yeah, it's very funny, and again, it's just more evidence of Negan being, to me, reverting to the old Negan, and of course, the Dama then, she's like, backstage or something, and she starts talking, and so then like more minions come out and kind of surround them, and there's like, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10, but they're only armed with like knives and stuff, and so great because Negan's like, oh no, however will we stop them? And he pulls his handgun out, and of course, all three of them have pistols and stuff, and I thought it was a great scene because they take those dudes out without blinking and breaking a sweat. I mean, it's just, Negan shoots the one dude on the stage in the face because he kind of is giving him, he's looking at him and like, come on, make your move. And then the guy like lunges for him and he shoots him. And then they take all those dudes out in like about 10 seconds. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's all headshots, like pretty much. And it's like bing, 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 and they're done.
Yep.
And
except for the one guy with the bad leg.
Yes. And they're talking to him. And they're and he's just standing there, and it looks like he's going to be the one that's killed next. But Maggie literally looks at him, and she's just like, "Run!"
Yeah, go,
like
go,
dum
you
dum.
leave.
And he runs, and the Dama's like, "You cowards!"
Oh yeah. But then they find her, and this is a part I thought was great. Was she? They come after her, and like the chandelier falls, like she must have rigged it or something, and they doesn't hit them, but it buys her a second or two, and so she runs towards the doors to get out at the exit, and as she's running down the steps, the music goes into a sting from the Broadway, the Andrew Lloyd Webber Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, I did not clock that, by the way.
It if you listen, it does the bum 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 bum. It's really fun. I'm like, because and we should point out, when they come in, very prominently on the wall on the marquee is the black poster that with the white text saying Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They go out of their way to tell you that Phantom of the Opera was the show that was on here in the before time, you know.
Right.
So I thought that was really fun, but the end result is, because of course she opens the door and there's a ghoul right there and it almost gets her, and so they get her, they capture her.
Yeah, they do. And they bring her across the street and they put her into the cells.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, first, Negan tries to shoot her.
Right, which doesn't work.
Maggie, stops him, and this is where we kind of get the first disagreement, because, Negan's like, no, she's got to die. What are you doing? You know, and this is the new Maggie. This is the kinder and gentler, and so she doesn't want to kill nobody anymore, and so we're going to take her. So they take her, you're right, and they take her back, and they put her in this, cage down by the methane tanks.
Yeah. So which seems like a weird place to put people, but whatever. Because I guess they already have jail cells in there too, because a couple of them are already filled with the dead that they're going to add to the methane tanks as needed.
I love that they put buckets on their heads, by the way. I thought that was
it's really smart.
It is, but it's just, I think that's an interesting visual. You see all these ghouls, and it helps because they can't see. Right. And so again, you're right. It's a very smart move. I just thought it was really interesting that they're all in the cages and they have buckets on. It's just like, oh, damn it.
I thought it was interesting that they kept them on them. Because, you're not going to put a live ghoul in there. You're going to brain it and then throw it in the tank. So why do they need to have the buckets on their heads right now?
I don't know. Again, it looked cool.
Yeah. I agree. It does. So with the Dama in the cell, as it were, she has this scene with Maggie where she's trying to say, I don't belong in here. You need me. She keeps saying, I have knowledge. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't know how to kill a walker. You've been in the apocalypse for 15 years. Get your shit together, lady. So she's just going on and on about how she doesn't belong in the where she is. She's like, I don't belong here. Because Maggie's trying to be nice. She's like, because she didn't kill her. Maggie had the opportunity to kill her, and they didn't. And she gives her a tray of food, and she I can't eat that. I can't eat that here. And she's all very making all these, negative comments when literally she's alive because Maggie let her live. And she's talking about all of the things that she can give to Maggie, and she makes this comment that I thought was really back and forth about how much she knows and all this other stuff, and how much New York can give to them because there's so much potential there, right? And she says to Maggie, there's an entire civilization waiting to be unleashed. And Maggie's like, I know, and walks away. So I just thought that was a great scene between the two.
I did too. The part that I liked is that the Dama's kind of, you're right, she's hitting all the things she can do. And Maggie, I thought was great because Maggie goes, and I can draw pictures for you.
Yeah.
And I thought that, I'm like, good line, Maggie, because and it's funny because it's like, wow, look at the ego on the Dama that she thinks she can turn Maggie, who, her son was turned and sent to kill her by this woman, right? And yet you're gonna convince her to let you out? I don't think so. And I think, doesn't Maggie tell her, you are never leaving this cell?
Yes.
Doesn't she say that to her right to her face? So
yes, she does.
Yeah, it was a fun scene, absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting because not killing the Dama and keeping her sparks this entire conversation throughout the whole episode, which is all about killing people because you kind of have to, or do you keep them alive? And she has this whole thing back and forth with Renata. They keep disagreeing, about whether people should die or people shouldn't die. Even though Renata's the one, Renata she's thinking practically, because she says, it's going to be resources. We're going to have to feed her. We're going to have somebody watch her. And because she's very charming, you're going to have somebody watching the person who's watching her, which I thought was really smart. Yep. And she's not wrong about all of those things. And her point is, all of those resources, is it worth it? Can she change? And that's where they talk about, when you think that she's talking about Negan, when they're like, have you ever seen someone change? And she's like, I saw one person.
Yeah.
So that was interesting, but I forget what I was going to say.
Oh no.
Oh no, I lost my thought. No.
What I think
Take
is
it and
interesting, let me talk while you compose yourself.
Yes.
What I thought was interesting in that scene is that Renata is like, Maggie is like we're not going to kill her. That's the camp she's in. And Renata is like you said, she points out all of like the logistics of what we have to do to keep her alive. And it's kind of like basically saying it's not worth it. We should kill her. But then Renata goes, but if we do that, then we all of the principles that we're trying to make this place into are gone.
Yeah.
That if we're just going to be that, human life is that cheap to us, then, we're not, it's not going to work. And that's when they talk about, the third option is rehabilitation. And that's when Renata's like, have you ever seen that work? And she literally is like, yeah, one time. And it's like, so obviously Negan is who she's talking about, and I think the irony there I thought it was a really clever bit of writing that if you remember back when Rick captured Negan, Maggie was first in line for the I want to fork and kill him.
Oh, yeah.
And what did Rick say? No, we're not going to do that. We're going to lock him up and we're going to rehabilitate him. And she thought that was the dumbest freaking idea ever.
Yep.
Right? And that's what caused her to leave the show. Well, that and money, but mostly that, right? And so now here we are X amount of years later, and she is the one that's advocating that, no, we're not going to kill this person that clearly deserves to be killed, right? And instead, we're going to lock him up and we're going to rehabilitate him. So I just thought that I love the irony of that. And I also love the fact that while that conversation is going on, Negan is right there and he's like, bullshit, and they look over like, excuse me. And that's when he, basically this is where, to me, it's like old Negan is talking, but without all the hyperbole of old Negan that we're used to, all the showman-y stuff that he would do, when he was in that mode. It's just more, listen to what he's saying. And, I think he says something like, nothing lasts unless you're willing to do the most brutal shirt imaginable to keep it. And then he looks right at Renata and he goes, and that, my friend, that ain't you. And then they have a few more, the girls say stuff about, no, we want to keep her alive and we can't kill her. And then Negan kind of looks at him and goes, look, you can go downstairs and kill the lady that wanted to kill you and Herschel, or you can listen to this lady who's going to get you and Herschel killed. It's your call. And again, in this particular bit, I am on Team Negan, kill the Dama. There's nothing good is going to come of keeping her alive, I think. Well, what do you think? What side would you be on?
I think that Renata made the best comment about it, which was the Croat is the one that really, really did terrible things to them. Obviously killing, the brother and the uncle, and I'm sure other things, his reign of terror. He was doing those all for the Dama. So as angry as they are with all the stuff that the Croat did, they all are traced to her. So they have legit reason, And like you said, Maggie strung up, what's his face? Gregory in the hilltop. Yeah. She did that in like a snap,
Oh yeah. And no trial, nothing. And yeah.
And the thing is I understand the argument, and that's going to come up a lot because I feel like they're setting up Maggie and Renata to be those people that they're because even the conversation they have towards the end and the statue and all that other stuff, this is going to be the conversation for the season, which is, are some people truly irredeemable? And, is it your responsibility to take them out? And I don't know where I stand on that, but I do know that keeping the Dama would just create the positives of killing the Dama outweigh the negatives that would happen if they kept her. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's better for them, it's better for them to kill her than it is to keep her, I think, the ultimately in the long term. Because even if you decide, even if the person behaves and it seems like they have rehabilitated, like what happened with Negan when he was in the jail cell, and there was the storm and whatever, and he went off and he saved little Judith and all of that. It still didn't change how people felt about him. They agreed, like, okay, he's living and, he saved Judith and that's wonderful. But it didn't change what people thought about him. They all hated him anyway, because of what he was and what he did and all of that stuff. And it fractured Maggie's relationship with Rick from there on out. I work with like 3 Nicks, so I type out the name Nick like a million times a day. So yeah, I think it's interesting that, Maggie killed Gregory like that, and has killed plenty of other people, obviously in self-defense, but she understands what it means. She's the one that wanted Negan to die,
Right, yeah.
And she fought against it, and she fought for it. She was so mad when they didn't do that. And now she's all about saving people. It just feels, and I'm not saying all about, they do come up with some really interesting offers for the Dama as the episode wears on, but I just think it's really, I always think if your first instinct is this person did all these terrible things, first instinct is kill them, pulling back from that is really difficult.
Yeah.
You're always going to wonder, did I do the wrong thing? Every time you see that person, did I do the wrong thing? Because after time goes on, it becomes a little like, well, you let her live for 6 months. You can't kill her now, because then you're the monster.
Can you? I don't know. I agree with you, but I think too, Negan, the advice that Negan's giving is the logical response.
For sure.
And Maggie is approaching it emotionally of, I don't want to be that person that decides who lives and who dies. And remember when they have the conversation in her apartment when she's talking about, and bringing more people on and expanding and we need more people. And he's like, that's foolish because they're, and she's like, good people is what she says. Right. And he's like, I'm not sure there are any good people left, which is something we've been saying for years on the show. Every group they meet is not good people, or, 99% of them. Right. And he's like, the world you're talking about has wardens and guards and cops and, people that are going to do all the dirty work that you just don't have the stomach to do, but you want to have done.
Right.
She does, you're right. She uses the defense of, I just want to save people. And I love it because he kind of turns it back on her and goes, in order to keep people alive, you have to kill a whole bunch of other people.
Right.
And sooner or later, you're going to kill the wrong person and get all spun out, and then you can't kill the right person. And it's just easier to not even try. Basically, he's back to the, I'm not going to get involved in this crazy plan you're hatching because it's crazy and it'll never work. But all the advice, and he at one point, I think he even says, like, back when I was with the Saviors, so he's going back to those times to give her advice on how to run this new community, which right there, that should be a huge red flag for Maggie, right?
Yeah.
That it's like,
give you some advice, man who did terrible things.
Yeah, and yet that's where he's going. But I don't 100% disagree with him, because I think, you're right. In this world right now, it's frontier justice. That's all it is. There is no more, well, we'll put you in a cell and, you'll live out your, no, that's not how it works anymore. That world is gone. Now it's literally Old Testament eye for an eye. And, you killed someone. Well, we're just going to kill you, because that's the easiest quickest way to solve the problem with you. And it's also going to be a deterrent to anyone else that this is what happens when we catch people who do stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she has got this utopia idea of, well, no, we don't have to kill any. What are you talking? No, we're good people. We don't do that. And it's just sort of like, yeah, look around. Good people kill people all the time.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having like a committee or a jury or because that stuff, like in the comic, that happens down the road in the Commonwealth and stuff like that, and even in Alexandria, they had a committee that decided on things and stuff like that. And I feel like if you rebuild stuff and you get to a point where your society has moved on in certain years, I can see you sort of naturally going toward that at some point. But the thing is, they're not there yet.
No.
They can't act like they are a judge and a jury right now when they aren't. They're just they're just the people right now. They don't have anyone in those positions. So they have to sort of make those decisions right away,
Yeah.
And it's not, here's the thing too. Why would you want to keep her? She doesn't want to. She says like, I should be out there doing stuff and whatever. She doesn't say, I can help you. Let me out and I can help you. Let me give you all my knowledge. Or if you want, have someone come down here and I can give them all my knowledge. And if I prove myself to you, I can stay. Or she doesn't say any of those things. So why would you keep her?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's and I think it's interesting that Maggie doesn't want to kill her, but she doesn't want anyone to ever have access to her. Like, you know what I mean? No way for her to talk to, like, you know what I mean? Like you said, like,
right.
Like they're not even going to like do like even like a show trial, right? Where they would bring her out and read off the charges and, because they don't want to give her a platform to say anything to anyone because they know how dangerous she can be. You don't want to convert anyone. You don't want to plant any seeds. You don't, you know what I mean? And to the point where like she tells Herschel, like, look, she's here and, you don't have to see her. She's never going to hurt you. She's never going to leave. It's all going to be fine. But Maggie wants to keep her alive, but wants to keep her literally locked away. You know what I mean? And so it's like, is it merciful that woman's going to live the rest of her life in like a 5x5 cage?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it is.
No. And then, of course, you have Negan right there going like, look, you know what? You have to, have the stones to do what has to be done. Even though it goes against your little utopia plan and all that, there are just, there are some, people that just won't come back to the flock. And you got to let them go. You can't force them back and whatever. And sometimes it's better off. What was the line from Pet Sematary? Sometimes dead is better. Right?
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah.
And like I said, you've got to weigh those out. The versus like keeping her alive, like the positives you would keep from keeping her alive. I'm not sure how big they are, but the positives of killing her are nice and big, and they outweigh what would ever be positive of keeping her. If you only have one or two things, she has so much knowledge. Like, yeah, but she killed a bunch of people and she had a reign of terror and they ran the whole town and they weren't very nice to people. That's a really good reason for her to go. So
that's an incredibly good reason. Yes.
So people, just be aware. When the apocalypse happens, you better be nice to me. And to Steve, apparently. Like, I might be a little bit more swayed because I have a little bit more of a heart left, but Steve, not so much.
Not so much. I'm definitely going to be the dibs, guys. That's my plan.
So that's a point of conflict, keeping her, etc. So there's all this conflict that happens around that. But meanwhile, there's this great scene that happens outside with Negan and Dillard.
Yes.
And you included in your honorable mentions the tail end of that scene. But the scene itself where, he's explaining the whole talking to the ghouls thing. He's trying to make it make sense. And Negan is very like, you're full of shit, man. Like he's basically like, there's no, like, why would you? And then, and he's trying not to, because this is his new friend and he likes him a lot. But he's he realized, like, this is crazy talk. It's there. He's not really able to understand what the ghouls are saying, no matter what he says. And there's this really great scene where there's a ghoul that's sort of like, there's like a piece of scaffolding and some caution tape and whatever, and there's a ghoul that's like right at the corner on the inside of the scaffolding, so it's sort of penned up and isn't able to attack them. And Dillard goes over and he attempts to, and I'm using some really heavy air quotes here when I say he attempts to talk to the ghoul.
He does, yes.
And I like how the scene sort of ended, but the whole him talking to the ghoul was just ridiculous. It was so crazy.
His name is Chaz, is the first thing he says, right?
Yeah.
And Negan is like, will you stop pretending? And he's like, stop telling me to stop pretending because I can really do it,
Yeah.
And so then he talks to me. And we should point out, Dillard will go like, and like talk back to him, and stuff. And Negan is, I mean, like I'm sure he sprained his eyes. He was rolling them so hard.
Oh my God.
The whole time. And then I know this is you have your point in there about how ridiculous it was, but his end line when he looks back at Negan is, I mean, I almost made that one of my points.
It's great because he goes through this stuff which is absolutely unbelievable. His name is Chaz and da 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 and da 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 da. And then he's like, and Negan's like, this is crazy. What are you doing? Whatever. And he's like, poor guy. He's a Jets fan. And I just laughed my ass off because that is absolutely a fate worse than being made into a zombie, honestly. And I'm sorry, Jets fans. Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry, but
they are long suffering.
They are. They truly are. It almost makes you want to become a ghoul. If you were rooting for the Jets, so yeah.
Sorry, folks.
But then it kind of turns into an action thing because Negan is had kind of fed up and he's like going to go over and put it down.
Yeah.
Which how many times have we talked about when people are out in the wild and there are ghouls that have teeth, which Negan points out, these are not the guys in your bar.
Yeah.
These are guys that'll bite you and kill you. And how many times in all these shows have we seen characters, there'll be a ghoul that's like this one, that's kind of, penned in, can't really move, but still alive, and they just walk right past them.
Yep.
And like, well, that one's not a threat. And it's like, have you ever seen a horror movie ever? I mean, it's like clearly that one's going to get loose and in an opportune moment, and then you're dead. And so sure enough, he moves in to get it, and it like lunges at him, and the whole scaffolding collapses, which is great. There's a little Buster Keaton moment there where they both move so the thing falls and they don't get crushed, like they move to an open space. Which was great. But there's like someone had like attached like a toolbox to the line, probably so they could lift it up to the top of the scaffolding, and so it swings down and smashes a plate glass window of one of the buildings, and now there's like 6 or 7 ghouls that come out of the window that are now in the street with them, right? So it goes from moderately bad to bad. And they have to like climb up the scaffolding, and of course Negan is just reading him the riot act, like, you see what happens when you screw around with these things, I love this scene. It was in my honorable mentions because he, like, up on one of the scaffolds are all these bricks that they were clearly using to repair the building or whatever, and he starts braining all these ghouls with these bricks. And first of all, bravo, Negan, with your aim, because, man, he hits every time, right?
You know what? Actually, on second listen, because they show the final product on most of them, but you can hear, because you know the difference, listen to that scene again, because it's like squelch, squelch, then the sound of a brick hitting the pavement. Once or twice. He doesn't hit every single one.
He's still pretty good.
Oh yeah, he's definitely batting at least 300 or 400 there. Yeah, he does well.
And then what I love is at the very last, the one ghoul that was there to begin with that started, I think Chaz is the only one that's left, and Negan is so pissed he reaches over and pulls this like window air conditioner unit out of the window that he's next to, and he brains that Chaz to the point where Chaz's head just explodes. A great gag, great effect. I loved it. It was wonderful, and yet I think it kind of like Dillard gets the message. I think, where he's like, you know what? I think I am acting a little weird. You're right.
Yeah, because with each one, he throws a brick, and each one he throws, he's like, these are not your friends. These are going to kill you. These are, so each time he throws one down, he makes a pronouncement, and he's like, they're not your friends. They have teeth. They have nails. They want to kill you. That's all they want to do. They can't talk to you, blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, each time he threw one, you could sort of see him react to it.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that weird part of Dillard's personality appears to be pushed to the side after this episode, hopefully, at least for a little bit. I have a funny feeling that for laughs, they'll probably pull it out at some point before the end of the season. He'll be stuck in a cave somewhere and it'll be like, Maurice, it's me.
Hey, remember me? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I thought, and we didn't make this a point, but I like that Dillard then he kind of opens up a little and he says that he was like a policeman in the before time and his thing was undercover, and he basically kind of throws this line out of if you do something long enough or pretend to be a certain way long enough, it becomes part of you. And I think you kind of get that. It helps. It really gives you a little window into his experience of, being by yourself like that. You do go a little crazy. You would think, right, that it would get to you, and you kind of incorporate oh, hey, it would be funny if I had a ghoul in the bar, and so you do that, but then a little bit later on, then, you name it, and then, you start talking to it, and then, before you know it, it's just part of your daily thing, you know what I mean? And it really, I think it was great because you see the crazy and it gives it some validity in that it's not like he just was crazy all the time, and that this is just a normal dude that this was his reaction to the end of the world, and I appreciated that.
Absolutely. I mean, I was alone by myself in the house for about a week while my wife and my mother-in-law were both in Florida. And I mean, I talked to the cat a little bit more than normal by the end of the week.
Oh, no.
Just, just to make sure I wasn't losing my mind.
You didn't pull out its teeth and its nails, did you?
No,
okay.
But there was but I understand the element of you're by yourself, and eventually it's just in order to not, it's like the same idea as talking to the volleyball, for crying out loud. It's having something to direct your thoughts to, and you have to keep talking and, keep your mind active. And talking is definitely a way to keep your mind active, even if it's not a real person that you're talking to.
Right. Yes.
And at least they made noises, so it felt like they were responding, which is why he said the whole, I understood them after a while. I mean, in Tom Hanks's case, the volleyball didn't talk back to him. He heard it in his head after a while, but it wasn't really. But actually, at least the ghouls were making their little noises. So, so there's that. Then we do get... There's these two, the closing of the episode are these two really great scenes that sort of are going on at the same time, which is, Maggie has this whole conversation about not just about the Dhamma, but about bringing new people to to their, I guess the hospital group is what we can call them or whatever.
Yeah.
And so she talks to Renata about that, and Renata's like, I don't think so. I don't know that that's a great idea. And they start talking about all of their, personal feelings and how they feel about the world. And it's all very deep and meaningful. And basically Renata is a hard sell. She's not sure it's a great idea to bring new people, because she keeps saying to Maggie, she's like, we do have all these really great resources, and it'd be nice to bring in, Maggie's talking about, wouldn't it be great if we had more doctors that Luis could train, if we had other people that could learn more things, because basically the people that are doing those things, they're eventually going to die, know, and so you need to have people to replace them. And your population needs to continue to grow. So, Maggie talks about bringing in these people, but Renata is like, if we bring in these new people, will they just take and we'll lose everything? Like, will they fight for it and take our stuff away, or will they, just fight against us to be able to take over this place? Rick and his team did at Alexandria, just take it over. If they don't want us in, we'll just take it.
Yeah.
And Renata is worried about that. She likes the community they have. It's small. They do have the power, but if they sort of try and not invite other people in, they could really get a lot of stuff done there. And Maggie's point is like, yes, we could, but we could do so much more. We could be bigger, and she brings up the thing about we could end up, with all this power, we could plow Central Park.
Right.
And plant crops
grow
there,
crops. And she points out that winter's coming, and they'll face hardships, and when people get desperate, that's bad, and that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think Renata is a really hard sell because, as she points out, up until this moment, Maggie has been the whole shh, don't tell anybody, and that's why they've got the red flashing lights, right? When anybody comes by, everybody shuts up, and they've got the blackout blinds on all the windows so no one can see them, and they're all just like, don't tell anyone. And now she's suddenly like, no, let everyone know we're here, right? And bring them on, bring them on. And Renata's like, are you sure?
Yeah, to the point where she even tells Armstrong before he leaves, she catches him, for one final 17th goodbye before he pushes off from the shore. And she tells him, I was wrong. She's like, tell people from the bricks to tell them to come, not the people from the bricks,
New
people
Babylon.
from New Babylon.
Yeah,
tell people from New Babylon.
And at the going away party, like, he makes a point of saying, I won't tell anyone about you guys.
Right, right. He's like,
you can trust me, and so then she, like, specifically, like you said, you're like, really, you're still here? which I thought the same thing. I'm like, what is the guy? If the guy's leaving, he should freaking live, right?
No kidding.
But she does. She finds
him,
and he's like on the shore, like getting ready, like to push the canoe into the water, right? Like just about to leave, and then she's like, hey, you can tell people. Right, so like she wanted to make sure that she got that message to him that yes, it's absolutely cool that you let people know where we are and what we're all about because we want people. And then she goes, good people.
We don't want the bad peoples because and it's it's very uplifting and all of that. And so she and Renata like sort of come to an agreement. And they decide to do that, so that's why she says that to Armstrong. But then they're also working on what looks like some kind of project. And you see them eventually. They've got a whole set of, they get one of the methane tanks and everything. They get themselves all set up. And what you end up seeing what they do is they've brought power over to Liberty Island, where the Statue of Liberty is. And then they get everything all plugged in. And then it's like, are you sure we should do this? And she's like, yeah.
Well, and there's no going back.
Yeah. And she flips the switch, and there's this great moment where you see, because there's spotlights that shine from the ground up to the statue. Mm-hmm. There's also some lights on the inside. Mm-hmm. And of course, because there's parts that are broken, there's more light sort of coming from inside the statue than there normally is. It's normally like a flat surface with like all this bright white light pointed at it. And then the last thing the camera does is it pans all the way up and you see the torch and the torch lights as well. So everything's lit. I would say it's not at full brightness that it should be at from seeing it in the flesh, but it's close enough. And let me tell you, even if they just had like one light bulb up there, it would be seen for miles because there's nothing else. Right. Nothing else is lit up like that. It just doesn't exist. And that happens. And as soon as she flips the switch, in my head, I was like, I don't know that that's a great idea.
Oh, I hate this plan. This is just stupid.
It's so stupid. And so while that is happening, Negan has made his way down into the depths to visit the Dama. And she has a knife already because she was already not eating. And so Maggie brought her a meal and was like, listen, these are your choices. You can decide to be a member of our group. You can eat some food or whatever. And she gives her a really sharp knife. And she's like, or just do it yourself.
Do it yourself and do it without suffering, basically.
Right. So she's giving you the choice, because otherwise, starving yourself is painful and it takes a while and whatever. And so she's trying to release her from the possibility of the pain. And so there's this moment where you think things are going to go okay. And she's sitting there.
She eats later. The very average in a casserole.
Yeah, she's like, tell her casserole is very average.
Yeah, very mediocre or whatever.
Yeah, and then not long after that, Negan shows his face. And you're like, well, of course he showed up, because things were looking good otherwise. And so, I mean, not good, but it was at least moving in the direction Maggie wanted it to. And so Negan opens the cell. She's got the knife. He, of course, gets it from her and has it and is moving toward her. And you don't see what happens, but you know what happens.
Well,
and Maggie and Renata.
Well, it's great that when Negan first walks up to her and she goes, "What are you doing here?" or whatever, and he's just like, "Oh, great, you're still alive. That means I get to kill you." and he's got, and again, it's like old Negan, man. He's it's like a channel back to that's what old Negan would have done, would have said. And yeah, that's what's got me excited about this, is that he, to me, is very much kind of going back to the old ways. But you're right. I do love the that he moves in, he disarms her, and then he's holding the knife, and he's kind of got that Negan grin on his face, right, that he has.
Oh yeah.
And then it cuts to whatever the maybe the armed people on the shore that see the statue and are like, what do you think that means? Oh, let's go find out. And then, but anyway, when it cuts back to Maggie and she goes down in the bowels there to check on the Dama, and she's all ghouled out.
Yeah. But she just thinks that she killed herself because she left her the knife. So she's like, okay, she did it herself, and she sees her. But then you look down and she's up against the jail cell, and she's like going towards Maggie because she wants to eat her, and she's like up against the jail cell, and Maggie looks down and you can see that the knife is in her chest, like into her heart, right? And all I have to say about that is, why didn't Negan remove the knife? Because if the knife was left for her, and he killed her and then left her and locked it up and let her turn. So why didn't he make it look like she killed herself? Like, pull it out, let it lay on the ground, Because I don't know a lot of people that would kill themselves by stabbing themselves in the heart. So it doesn't look like a suicide to me, and you can see that on Maggie's
Oh no,
face.
Maggie knows immediately what happened. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
I think this is my take on it. There's a scene before they go to the Statue of Liberty where Maggie goes to see Negan at the bar, and she basically is telling him her plight of like, I want to kill the Dama, but I really can't kill the Dama. And Negan's like, why are you telling me? And she literally is like, because you're the only person who could understand this dilemma, And I think that's where he says the line about, in order to keep people alive, you have to kill a whole bunch of other people and all of that. But to me, I come away from that Negan interpreted her going to see him of like, I really want the Dama to die, but I can't kill her. Yeah, and what was the line? I needed you, or you needed me, right? And so he got whether she was just like, look, I just need to talk to someone that can relate to what I'm going through or not, he took it as, okay, you want the Dama to be killed, but because of this, crazy moral code you suddenly developed, you can't do it. I got you. I got your back. And so
Right.
then he goes and does it. So he wouldn't pull the knife out because he wants her to know when she sees it that, hey man, I did it. Just what you
Right.
wanted me to do, And I mean, we haven't seen episode 3 yet, but I'm guessing there's going to be a conversation about that where she's going to be like, what did you do? Negan, what did you do? And
what
then,
did you do?
And then he'll be like, I did just what you told me to do,
I'm wondering though if she's gonna keep that private, or if she's gonna tell everybody else, yeah, she offed herself. She chose the path of killing herself. Like, is that what she's gonna tell the people, or is she gonna be honest and be like, it looks like Negan did it. I didn't do it. It looks like Negan did it.
I think she's going to not tell Renata or Luis and basically say, yeah, you know what, I talked to the Dama, I gave her options of, look, you can starve yourself to death, it's slow and painful and a pain in the ass to do, or you can eat the food and join the community and be part of the group, or here's a knife, just end it, and that way you're not going to suffer. And she ended it, and then go read the riot act to Negan.
Right.
That'd be my guess.
I wonder too if that will come up later, like say they get in some argument and they're in front of like Renata and Luis, and it's like 5 episodes from now, and he's like, yeah, well, you're pretty ungrateful. I killed the Dama for you.
Right.
And Luis and they're going to be like, I'm sorry, what? And then they're going to be mad at Maggie, and it's going to create division and blah, blah, blah.
You know what? This is what they call a drama, so I'm pretty sure that's going to happen.
Right. And also, I don't disagree. Like, the Dama had to go. Like, Negan, as much as, he should have asked permission, I guess, I don't know, but Negan did what needed to be done. They weren't going to be able to move ahead as a society with carrying along her as, like, this albatross.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well, and plus there's also just the concept of the new showrunner wants nothing to do with the first 2 seasons, so of course they're going to get rid of her because he doesn't want her in the story.
Of course, yeah. Absolutely. So then obviously the light lights and the people are on the other shore and they're like, let's go check this out. So that's the end of the episode. And
I gotta say, and I'm gonna ask you, did they look like good people to you?
I mean, they look like they had a good barber, but that's about all I really. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think so, but I mean, we don't know until we see them. I was trying to look at them because I wanted to see, like, are they New Babylon people? Are they a faction of New Babylon people that left and they ran into Armstrong on the road and found out, or are they people from the Bricks? And they left the Bricks?
You know what?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that reminds me. Yeah, that's something else that I picked up on the second time that is woefully explained, and that is by the end of the episode, all the people from the Bricks are now living in the hospital with Maggie.
Oh, they are?
Oh, yeah. That when Maggie's talking about we need more and more people, and then Negan's like, so you can have wardens and guards and all that stuff. There, if you rewatch that or look at that conversation, it's very heavily implied that somehow, and we don't know how much time has passed here, but somehow
True.
Maggie has either gotten word to the Bricks or traveled there herself and said, hey, it's Maggie, and I found this really cool place to live on the island, and it's, great, there's food and protection, you should all come. And that's where all the people, the new people that are there, because the original hospital group was like 10 people when we see them in the flashback, and by the time we get to the Statue of Liberty scene, it's a sizable community, and that's where the numbers have come from. That it's the Bricks people and maybe there were a few survivors from the New Babylon people that blew up, I don't know, but the majority of them are the Bricks. And again, they do not do a good job of telling you that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I didn't know that until you just said so.
Yeah, right.
So, okay, well, that's interesting. So that kind of ends the episode and our major points. My only honorable mention I included was I loved when Dillard and Negan were playing the video games and were trading pretty much it was like the version of your mama jokes back and forth, pretty much. But
your
when they're
mama's
finished,
called a sheet cake because everybody gets a slice or a piece. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that was good. But when they're absolutely finished and Negan has beaten Dillard in the game, he like throws down the controller and takes a deep breath, puts his hand out, kind of like talk to the hand, and he just says, "Gargle a chainsaw."
Gargle a chainsaw, yeah.
And I'm like, that's a great one. I need to remember that one.
Time. Yep.
Yeah. I think we covered all your honorable mentions. Is there anything else?
The only honorable mention I have is I hate Maggie's plan. I hate it. It's just in the history of The Walking Dead, and I think probably in the history of civilization, that plan will never work, ever. Nope, you do not.
Right.
You do not open the doors and say, anybody who wants to come in, come in. No. And then just to go back to the insults, I love that after he does the sheet cake line, Dillard goes, "I will not disparage your mother, but she clearly should have swallowed you."
But then Negan goes, "That's some truth."
I know, but it's a good burn, So yeah, and very much the way pros do it when they're hanging out like that. So it felt very real.
Yeah, it did. I wonder if they improv'd a lot of those and they just kept them. Ones. Like maybe nothing was scripted and they just went.
Yep, I would not surprise me at all. Yeah, would not.
Me neither. Not at all. So that wraps up all of our points for both episode 1 and episode 2. Always a longer episode, we agree, whenever we have to talk about 2. But it had to be done, people. We had to get it done so we can be on track. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to discuss our listener feedback that we received and what's coming up next on the podcast.
So everybody, please stick around because we will be right back.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally gonna get in. You better get ready for it.
No! Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the best of horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and apocalyptic entertainment. Aim for the Head, available wherever you listen to podcasts. Find us on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Hey there, everybody. We are back. We're going to jump right into our listener feedback that we received and then chat a little bit about what's coming up on the podcast. But first up, feedback. Now, we always tell people, if you send us feedback after the episode has aired, meaning our podcast episode, and you have more thoughts, or maybe you get your stuff in late, we always try to include it. So, on that note, we received another email from our listener, Martha Cara. Martha was following our... Hey, Martha. She was following our coverage of the Burrows. If you're just chiming in for Walking Dead and you haven't listened to our Burrows coverage, Martha sent us some emails in the last few weeks, and she included some final feedback for episode 8. So, Martha, just want to make sure that we get your feedback logged on the podcast. So she writes in and says, "Dear Diana and Steve, great point that at the moment of Annalise and Blaine's deaths, they looked like they would..." Oh, and by the way, spoilers if you haven't watched Burrows, I'm sorry. So, skip ahead if you haven't. Great point that at the moment of Annalise and Blaine's deaths, they look like they would have had they not exploited Mother for all those decades. I think that was your point. It was very convenient that Renee was able to convince Wally to hand over Mother and Hank to hand over the kids as fast as she did. That scene with her and Wally was the only one in the series that made me tear up, more so than the scenes with Sam and Lily, because he won't really haunt her after he passes. Maybe in a TV show he will. Nice point that the kids stole the quartz to make a pretty death place for Mother. Aw. Nice point that Mother's letting Sam have his last moment with Lily was her way of saying goodbye. I love Erica's point that Mother deserves cotton candy and her sugar is probably low. It's totally true. Nice point that Blaine probably had a mother blood smoothie in his car as he drove to the cave. Wouldn't you? I like Jen's interpretations about Blaine wanting to die and Mother using the image of Annalise to mess with him. The poop knife and Sam transferring onto one of the kids and having the glitch because of that. She continues on and says, the creators had concrete plans for not only a second season, but also a third season of The Burrows. Someone online pointed out that we might find out what they had in mind if they put all their ideas into comic book or some other format. I don't know how likely that is. Neither do I. But thanks for finding that on the internet.
It is kind of likely because, Joss Whedon, who created Buffy and Firefly, he has released comic seasons for continuing on the shows. So it's something that is possible and has been done previously.
Sure.
Whether or not this show has the fan base that would, stir up enough interest, I don't know. But it is certainly
demand it be done, yeah.
Yeah, but it's certainly something that is not has never been done before. It has been.
Yeah.
So it would be cool. I would like to, particularly if they already had some plots, worked out of what they wanted to do. I would want to see that. That'd be cool.
Absolutely. Back to you, Martha, saying about whether or not it's likely. I guess what Steve says is true. It depends on how much the fandom sort of demands something like that. Maybe we'll see something. Who knows? She continues and says, nice idea about Father avenging what happened to Mother in a future season, which was, I'm not sure if we brought that up, if someone else did. I would have liked to have watched that. I'll fast forward through ads like I usually do with ads, theme songs, bumpers, and unrelated small talk. Do whatever you want. Oh, well, thank you. That's in the plus column for us ads. And I'm glad you genuinely enjoyed The Burrows and discussed it on your podcast. Thank you for being kind enough to interact with me. Thank you for also reminding me that Earth Girls Are Easy is a sci-fi. It was such an important movie to me when I was 10, when it was repeatedly on Comedy Central, and I was waiting for A League of Their Own to come out on video. It was so colorful and fun because the aliens and humans behave so strangely. Does it qualify for your podcast? I don't know. We talked about that a little bit, but we also talked a little bit more about the next thing she brings up.
Well, okay, let me just say, if you guys are going to force me to watch Gina Davis run around in a bikini for a big chunk of a movie, I suppose I can do it. Okay.
Will you grovel and do it if you have to?
I say, you know what? It'll be hard. Well, let's stay away from that. It'll be
difficult.
Torturous and difficult, but I think I could find a way to get through that again.
Yeah, don't use the H word, please. So continuing on, she then says, thank you for saying that The Fly is definitely something you could cover on your podcast, which we did have a conversation about.
We did.
Have you seen the special features on it? So much of the original Filmmakers was recorded in 2005 in time for the 2006 20th anniversary DVD, and I understand that has been included in the Blu-rays and DVDs of The Fly that have been released since then. The making of this movie was very well documented, as though the filmmakers really wanted other filmmakers to learn from them. If you're interested in the writers and directors researching many aspects of the projects you discuss, these special features are for you. There's so much to sink your teeth into. Director David Cronenberg does a voiceover on the entire movie, and if I remember correctly, he comments on the use of CGI being more common in movies at the time and wonders whether 20 years from then people will be tired of CGI. There are articles from Cinematography magazines from 1986 and a copy of Charles Edward Pogue's original screenplay, in addition to a version of the Cronenberg screenplay. Chris Wallace, who won the Oscar for, I believe, Best Makeup, speaks a lot on the video and has a video of the puppets, models, and other objects still stored in his house. I think your detailed take on the special features as well as the movie would be very interesting to listen to. Best, Martha. Martha, first of all, thank you so much for interacting with us while we were covering The Burrows. Not sure if you would hear this because I think you said before that you don't watch a lot of zombie-related and horror things. She mostly listens to the Burrows stuff because she's a huge Gina Davis fan. But if you did, I hope you enjoyed the fact that we included your comments. And if you didn't, then hopefully somewhere out in ether you understand. And just keep an eye on the podcast. And if we do at some point cover The Fly down the road, hopefully you'll see that we are doing it. So it's definitely something we're taking into consideration. So
absolutely.
And again, go ahead.
I was going to say, because, we have a long time until Daryl Dixon gets here.
Yes.
We're going to have some free time to pick some movies, I think. So, yeah.
And that's definitely falls under a really great classic that we could definitely cover. So hopefully you'll be around for that. But thanks again for all of your feedback during the Burrows. We really enjoyed it. And thanks so much for sending in this feedback. Thank you again,
thank
Margo.
you. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. So now we're on to Dead City.
Yes.
And leading us off is our good friend and fellow podcaster, Bev 2.
Hey, Bev.
Hello, Bev. I got to say, I'm still, have not yet to see the Diana Driscoll interview podcast yet.
She said the fall. Calm down. It's coming.
Right. I'm just saying, it's like, come on, let's get it going. Anyway, Bev sent it in via the email, and she goes, "Hi, Diana and Steve. It's so good to be back in the comfy, chaotic arms of the Walking Dead universe again. What a strange start to the season, though. The tonal shift is massive. We ended last season with Maggie and Negan seemingly ready to team up and kick everyone's backsides, and now suddenly we're in a let's all hold hands and love each other phase. Left me feeling a bit uneasy and confused." Yeah, me too. So I didn't think much of the first episode. Me too. It moved at a decent pace, but it had far too much to do in 1 hour to justify such a sharp change in direction. We start with Maggie and Negan having what felt almost like a lover's tiff. Parts of it were funny, but it clashed with the tone of the last couple of seasons. Yes, it did. Then, within a handful of scenes, we get a whole new set of characters, and Herschel returns. The Croat arrives, and we meet a bizarre pub landlord who, with Walker friends, the Croat hands over his last energy source, then dies. Negan is sad, and a baby is born. It was a lot.
It's when you write it all like that, it really is a lot. So
it is.
Yes,
it's a lot.
I agree.
And like we were saying when we were talking about it, clearly the new showrunner really wanted to just say, yeah, all that stuff before, very fear-like, right? When the Knuckleheads took over and all the stuff that they had set up in the first couple of seasons of Fear, they're just like, yeah, forget all that. We're just going to go off in our own direction. And that's what this guy's doing. And you're right. It was very chaotic. I think it could have been handled better. It could have been written better and less confusing, but as you said, there's a lot of stuff that happens in this episode. So
yeah.
She goes on to say, episode 2 felt calmer, but still busy. A whole new community is built. Herschel is suddenly training to be a doctor, and Negan has moved in with the eccentric landlord and basically given up on participating in life. Everything seems fine until the Dama returns. She's thrown in prison, and Negan decides to re-engage with the world by killing her. Is old Negan creeping back? Yes, he is. I'm telling you, people, old Negan is a-coming. It really feels like the team behind the show looked at the first 2 seasons and thought, this isn't very Walking Dead, and Maggie and Negan's constant squabbling has to end, either with death or forgiveness. I'm glad they chose forgiveness, even though death would have ended the show. It's still odd seeing them get along so well. Yes, it is. It would never happen in real life, and one of them would have killed the other by now, without a doubt. She goes on to say, I do like the direction things are heading. The characters sounded more like themselves again, and I'm relieved that Angry Maggie has finally been retired. She was getting very dull. Yes, she was. If the show slows down a bit and lets things breathe, there are characters here we could genuinely come to love, especially the landlord. And she's referring to Dillard, the bard. Yeah, Jimmy Simpson there. And yes, great actor, and he's clearly going to make great character. I just wonder, is it going to be too standard Walking Dead crazy for us to really like? She goes on to go, they need to build out the cast more so we can have real jeopardy because the main characters have too much plot armor. Yes, correct.
Yes.
Right now it feels like they're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. I'm hopeful, though. I really want this season to have the space to breathe. However, one thing absolutely drove me mad. Why do they keep saying they can finally build a safe, new society with rules and community? What do they think the Commonwealth is? Good point. Just take the energy source and go home if that's what you want. Yeah, why not? Why not go back to the Commonwealth?
Yeah.
It's good idea. Anyway, I'm really glad the show is back, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Bev, and then she says, in a very hot and sunny Brixham. Ooh, she's in Brixham right now. Well. Hello. Normally she's inhabiting Devon. Now she's in Brixham. So good for you, girl. Hopefully that's either a vacation or a move to a better place.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks for writing in, Bev. It's been a while since we've heard from you, so it's nice to when we're back with the main series spin-offs, it's nice to see some of our regulars come back to the fold.
I agree.
Yeah. So thanks again, Bev. And moving on, speaking of regulars, Erica Price, P1 listener. Erica sent us some feedback for both of the episodes she sent via the Facebook. And she says, first questions. How are they printing these flyers? So goddamn logical. With what computer did they make them? Well, shit, Negan. Is that all you've got to say? Do you think Negan really would have stabbed her if they hadn't been interrupted? What did Renata use to tie their hands? Rubber bands? Do you get the feeling they heard us complaining about how much of a shithead Herschel was being and decided to give him a personality upgrade this season? OMG, Jimmy Simpson. Oh, I hope he's got more to do this season, and this bit isn't it. Why does the Croat sound like Emperor Palpatine? Is Negan really crying? Like, actual tears? Wait, is Herschel on deck while Doc gets fresh zombie meat? How is it going to make methane that fast?
That's a good
we didn't
point.
Talk about that. I thought it had to rot a while. I'm so confused. It is weird to see them grinning at each other. Okay, so the Croat is dead. Yay! Negan has a new drinking buddy. Maggie has a new bestie. Herschel is behaving himself, for now. And the Crypt Keeper, the Dama, is hot on their heels. Here we go! She continues on and says, episode dos. Gotta brush up on my Spanish. Title is Haven. Maybe it should have been Heaven. Maggie's making so much progress and Negan's regressing to his teenage years. 20-year-old coffee? Pass. Good grief. Negan and Dillard is standing right there gawking at you. Oh, how I wish Negan would have gotten that shot off just a bit faster. But then we wouldn't have had a baddie. I gotta say, the new showrunner leaning heavily on humor this season has me liking this show way more. I did enjoy a lot of the humor, that is for sure. Needle Dick, good one. Margaret, even better. I did like when he did that. Again, I'm confused. Maggie's telling Negan they could triple their population and still have enough food. Yet she's telling Renata the pantry is dwindling with no way to replenish it? Yeah, I noticed that as well. I understand what Maggie's trying to do, but it's not going to work unless they have some sort of screening set up on Ellis Island. The season is off to a good start. I'm loving the humor. I hope they keep it up. This is the last one, right? And that I don't think we know that. We don't know anything about when this show ends. Only Daryl Dixon.
Yes. You're right. This one, there still is the possibility that they could
do a season
do more seasons. But yeah, Daryl Dixon for sure has confirmed that this coming season is the last one.
Final one. Yeah. All right. She continues on and includes a little P.S. at the end of her feedback and says, P.S. I get the feeling that getting rid of the Croat and the Dama was a big middle finger to the previous showrunner, and I'm here for it. I was honestly dreading watching it because it seemed like last season was going in the direction of fear, and we really can't go through something like that again. Amen, sister. I'm really liking the direction this is going. Also, I understand if you need to add commercials. So, thank you, Erica, for your hilarious feedback as usual. Let me add a little context here for people that might be out of the game, since we were talking about something other than Walking Dead for a little bit. What Erica and Martha were referring to is there's the possibility through our hosting company we use, which is Libsyn, you can do a thing called automatic ads, where they will just insert ads that you publish, and they'll just sort of slot them anywhere, which is kind of shitty, but it is what it is. And it has the possibility of bringing a very small revenue stream in, and could possibly just offset maybe even the cost of hosting the podcast or something small like that. This is not like, we don't have enough download numbers for this to turn into any kind of like a money-making business. This is more like a defray the cost of the episodes kind of thing. And we didn't want to start until we got some feedback from you guys. So we've already gotten some feedback from Erica and from Martha saying to do what we got to do, but we're throwing it out there. New group of people that'll be listening to this now because we get a sort of a different group of people to listen sometimes to Walking Dead that may have not been listening to other things that we covered. So let us know if you have any feedback about us possibly adding ads in. We're not going to do anything right away, but we just want to know what we're working with, and we've got time to sort of figure that out. But anyway, I just didn't want to leave that hanging there after Erica's feedback. And thanks again for it. So next up, on the podcast next week, we'll be discussing episode 3. Title of the episode is Emigrants. Instead of immigrants, it's emigrants. And we did get no description of the episode, but we did get some scenes at the end of the episode, and basically it just looks like the arrival of those people we saw at the end of the episode, and how they sort of deal with all of that. And obviously it doesn't look like it goes well.
Yes, it did. Hilarity does not ensue, and I would almost say it looks like it's not just them, but just lots of people start turning up at the island.
Yeah,
so,
turn the damn light off.
Yeah, really, it's like, come on, we're closed, people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So no description yet, but obviously if you watched episode 2 and saw the clips at the end of it, then you get sort of a general idea of what's going to happen. And based on how the episode ended, it was pretty clear that's probably going to be a main part of the next episode. So there's that. Yeah, so that's about all. We would normally chat a little bit here, folks, but we've been going on so long because it's a 2-episoder. It's a twofer. So we'll go ahead and we'll do a little more jibber-jabber on next week's episode, especially about Flashback Weekend, which we just attended. We'll chat about that next weekend, next week's episode, we promise. But we want to go ahead and wrap this up before we hit the 3-hour mark. So we're trying. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks again for listening. We always love when people listen in, especially the long episodes. But we're looking forward to coming back and talking about episode 3 next week. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
And don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because those body shots, they just don't work.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTH Podcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
Start it off here. I got my one line. I'm all ready to go. Front.
You do.
It's great. I'm practicing. Check this out. Front. Oh, wait.
No.
Damn it.
Sorry. Try that again.
Line.